What habits have you had to break for you to be able to now show up with such freaking confidence?
There's no point where I get an opportunity, even now, and I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to do this. I still get all those barriers, but I've learnt to see those barriers as something that is going against me than for me. And before, I used to think the barriers were something that were there for me to like protect me and keep me in a space of safeness. And so I think it's the conversion in my mind of these are barriers I'm putting up for myself, not for protection most of the time, but that are actually going to stop me from creating a better version or for creating a better self. But I would say I still get that mentality. My people-pleasing mentality is still very, very strong. I got to a point in my life where I realized I was saying no to a lot of things that I thought would be fun and would be exciting and would be something that could help me grow, or it would benefit my life in some way, but I would stop myself because of the fear and the anxiety. And so I was stopping myself from so many things and so many opportunities, closing myself off in this box because I was allowing my anxiety to control me more than my joy and excitement. And I decided that I wanted to just start saying yes to things. Like, even if it scares me, even if it makes me feel really uncomfortable and really out of my comfort zone, I just want to say yes, because I want to know I can do things. I want to know I can complete things. And I want to know that even if I can't do it, at least I know I can't, rather than always living in this possibility of I could, or I would, or I should, but like never actually knowing. And I think that's literally what I did. I ended up just saying yes to whether it was speaking, whether it was coming on podcasts, even with people that I didn't know. That was really scary for me. And just every time I ended up overcoming that hurdle, it was like this confidence boost for myself to say yes to the next thing and the next thing. And so I think it's that feeling of once you say yes to one thing, you reward yourself in such a beautiful way of confidence. Like, the reward is confidence. The reward is feeling like, wow, you actually did something, like you actually completed it. And then that is almost like the thing that propelled me to keep saying yes to things. After I came on your podcast, I was like, that was amazing, but what else do I have left to say now? Like, what else do I even have to talk about? I've already spoken about, I felt like I poured so much into that first podcast. And in my mind, I was like, well, I pretty much said it all. Like, what else is there to even say? And so every time I would be thinking about doing something, I'd be like, what if I run out of things to talk about? Like, what if there's nothing else left for me to do or for me to say? Or what if I don't accomplish it in the way that I thought I would? So it was definitely the fear of the unknown and also not knowing my capabilities and not knowing I could do it, not having trust or faith in that. And then I think it was the concept of like the image of what people will think, what people will say. You say one thing wrong and it can be taken in the completely wrong way than what you meant it, and the fear of other people's judgment and how they would perceive it. I honestly think those were the two. And then actually, no, the third one is being lazy. The third one is me just being like, I'm really comfortable. Why should I put myself out there? I think I was used to being taken out of uncomfortable situations by my mom, by my sister, by my family. But I grew up in a way that my loving family just wanted to save me naturally. Like, if something was happening, if I was struggling in an area, I never really had to struggle because I always had a savior. And so I actually do think it came from a little bit of laziness because I was so used to being saved in moments of struggle or being told, it's okay, you don't have to do it. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, don't do it. I've been thinking about this for a while recently, especially to do with like Instagram, where my friend recently said to me, she was like, oh, you really don't care like what you look like when you post, do you? Like, you've really like gotten over there. And I was like, at first I was like, that's really rude. Like, what do you mean? Like,
What are you trying to say?
yeah, I was like, that's actually really rude. And I know she meant it in such a like, oh my gosh, like that's so amazing that you feel that way. And actually I've practiced this process of when I think I want to delete something based on the way that I look or the way that I'm perceived, I keep it up there on purpose. Like, the moment I even feel that, I keep it there, because I realized you have to also, like, I had to get over myself. Like, why do I even care? And that's what I keep asking myself. I'm like, if someone thinks that I'm not smart. Why do I care about their opinion? What does that matter? Like, why does it actually matter in my life? If someone thinks I'm not as beautiful as the person sitting next to me, or I don't have the body of like the person sitting next to me or the person that they see on screen, how much does that really impact my life? Only to the extent that I let it. And so I've gotten used to being a lot more carefree, because if I care so much about those things, that's what I'm going to constantly see and worry about, right? Like if that's where my mind is at, that I'm putting something up, if I'm thinking, did these people think that I look nice in this? Do they think that and everything is about the perception rather than the actual part of me, then I'm just living in a very shallow life in my own mind versus me thinking of the intention behind why I'm doing it. And that makes everything worthwhile.
God, that's so strong. But there are so many people, and I'm just going to put myself included, growing up, especially as a teenager, I just wanted to fit in.
Oh,
I
same.
wanted to look as beautiful as the person next to me. I wanted to be as skinny as the girl next to me. I didn't want to be standout. So if you're saying the same, how did you go from then that to then being the person that was like, so what, this is me?
I think I'm still and honestly, I still struggle with that every single day, but it's the thought process of, again, like I was doing with the boundaries of just saying yes. With this, it's just asking myself at that point, do I want to make people feel comfortable in their own skin? Like the reason why I'm doing it is because I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, right? If I say I don't want to put this up because like sometimes I'll put up a video of me working out and I'll get random messages like, oh, are you pregnant? And I'm like, bro, like, why would you even ask that? But now I've realized I'm like, okay, cool. Even if it is the little bit of chub that I have around my belly, which I love, but even if it was that, I'm like, why is that comment going to stop me from posting something? Like, I want to show that unboxing. I love that skill of mine, and I think it's so beautiful. But that person telling me that I look pregnant is going to make me delete something that I appreciate and love so much about myself, that skill that I really appreciate, that I've worked on. And so it honestly is, it's something that I think about every single day still when I'm posting things, when I'm doing things. But I think what's helped me like overcome that is, how do I want other people to feel watching it? Do I want them to feel like they have to be a perfect version of themselves or a perfect version of someone else? Or do I want them to feel like, oh, I can really feel like I can be myself? And that's how I feel like I suffocated myself in the want to show up online in a certain way that I looked and, you know, that I seemed. But some days I do look dull and some days I don't feel my best self. But does that mean I don't post and I don't talk about things that I am happy about just because visually I'm not looking as appealing as someone would like? I'm just like, life is too short for that. I want to be in a space where I show up online and I show up to other people and experience the things that I'm supposed to without worrying about or thinking about the external part of me. And if that's all you actually care about me for, then that also shows that our relationship is not, or like the community is just not there.
Yeah. So is that then you being so grounded in your why? Because I'm trying to really think, right, if someone's watching now, like, I don't want them to dismiss how confident and, you know, like lively and fun you are right now. Like, it's a lot of work that you go through. So if someone's at home listening, how do they start to think like that or behave like that? And would you say it is because you're so grounded in your why?
I would say it's because I've tried to change dialogue in my mind. So when it came to building my own confidence in that way, it was one, seeing the messages that I got from other people saying, thank you for just showing up even when you have spots and cold sores and all those things that we all get but usually hide from. That for me was like, yeah, it's allowing people to just be themselves. And that gave me the confidence. And then it was every single time I would say something negative to myself in my head, which by the way still happens on a daily basis when I look in the mirror because that's what I've been so trained to do. Every time I would do that, at least I would follow up with something that was like grateful for my body beyond the external. So what I would do is, let's say I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, you look so gross right now. Let's just say that's what went through my mind. Like, why is your hair like that? I would then follow up and be like, I'm so grateful for like my lungs for breathing, or my heart for beating, or like my feet for carrying me today, or like even being able to do the things that I'm doing in the day, specifically to my body parts, but more of a deeper value rather than just physically what I'm looking at. And that grew appreciation for my body in another way. And so strength became something that I was looking at, and power became something I was looking at, and endurance and being able to not be tired all day, like the things that I needed to actually live and appreciate my life versus how I was looking at myself in that moment. So changing the dialogue to that has been really helpful, and still to this day is.
Can you tell me how you identified the dialogue? Because I don't know about you, girl, but for like 25 years. Yeah, 25 years. I didn't even realize I was doing it.
I thought it was so normal.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
It was probably, I think, to be honest, it was a guess. I can't even remember who, but they were just like, just take inventory. Just take inventory for the next week of when you walk past the mirror, what you say. And girl, I was like...
No, it's horrible.
Shredding myself to bits, and I didn't realise.
No, I honestly think that, and I don't say this lightly, we bully ourselves on a daily basis. Like, if what you say to yourself in the mirror is what you are actually saying in real life to your sister or your mum or someone that you love and care about, do you feel like they'd be able to leave the room and carry on with their day? And I'm like, no. I don't think I would. I don't think they would be able to. And if someone said that to me, I wouldn't be able to. And also your subconscious, you end up letting things run constantly in your mind without even noticing. Like you were saying earlier, like everything becomes a norm once you do it enough. Even if it isn't normal, that becomes your norm. It's like having an abusive boyfriend. It becomes very normal to you until you step outside and you realize, wait, if this was someone else, it's always about someone else. If this was someone else and it was happening to them, I would never think it was okay. You're right, inventory is really important, like taking note every single day, and even better than that, writing it down when it comes to your mind, like seeing those words in front of your eyes and saying, I cannot believe I just said that to myself. I just can't believe it. And I think that is definitely the first step that should continue throughout our lives, because it's also so easy to go up and down with your feelings. Like there are times where still, I'd probably say I went through that like a couple of weeks ago where I was just being so down about myself because I was like, oh, the workouts that I was trying to do and what I was trying to achieve, even in my like strength training and things, I was like, God, I'm just not seeing any results and I don't know why it is. And all these things where you're just like, well, I might as well just give up because it's just not working. And you end up kind of getting yourself so down with all your negative self-talk. But the point is, the more you say it to yourself, the further down you get. And so it's like when you're feeling sad and you end up listening to sad songs, you're going to get more sad. So instead, if you're feeling down about yourself, lift yourself back up using language that does that. We don't realize the power of words, whether you're saying it to yourself or to other people. And I think, you have to do the opposite to how you're feeling, even though it feels so crap in the moment. But telling yourself until you believe it is just... It works. Like I've done it and it works.
I love that so much, especially the music thing. When I was a kid, I used to like almost lean into the feeling that I was having. And then to your point, I realized that I couldn't get myself out of it. The more I would, and in fact, actually, I'd love to talk to you about this. So ugly crying, right? So like in that moment, sometimes I actually do need to just ugly cry. I do need to allow myself to release before I then can retract and bring myself back. And I've heard you talk about the pleasure of actually crying and releasing. But for you, how do you then get yourself out of it? Because to your point, if you can keep spiraling down, but sometimes it's needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it is needed. And I think we've spoken about this before, where it's about sit in your sorrow for a certain amount of time. Like let yourself feel it. Don't ignore it. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself release that emotion in whatever way you need. But I normally cap myself at like, now a couple of hours. I'm like, look, you feel this way. And even if it is something to do with, my family being unwell or whatever it is, that even if it is to that degree, I still say, I'm not going to benefit from sitting in this. They're not going to benefit from sitting in this. So yes, feel what you're feeling, but at the same time, let me do the thing. So I can still be sad and go on a walk. And I will cry on my walk. But I know that going outside, feeling nature around me, getting movement in my body is still going to help me. Even if I'm crying at the same time as being out. I'll put on my sunglasses and I will go on a walk, because that movement is creating better energy in my body. And the nature is fueling me in a way that I know for me that's a really important part of fresh air and just getting outside. And it just completely rejuvenates my mind in that way. And so for me, it's not about, right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to be really happy. It's like, no. Let's do the activities that are going to help support me to get there while still feeling this way. Because duality exists all the time. And I always think about this. I'm like, I can be really sad that my grandma's unwell, but at the same time, I can be really happy that my friend has like I don't know, my friend's getting married and I can be really excited for them, but at the same time be really sad about this. And so I think we're so used to living in a I'm so happy or I'm so sad, but actually life doesn't work that way. I can be so sad and so happy at the same time about different things and still continue in my day. And I think about that when we go out in the world, like, you know, you can be really upset and sad, but you can compartmentalize it to continue your life and do what you need to do.
I love that. And as you were saying, the duality, it was almost go back to where we even started, where you're saying like the fear and the excitement.
Yes.
So you can be really freaking scared to do something, but actually the excitement that you've just gotten over it. And once you experience the duality and you actually accept the duality, then I think it allows you to just then when you feel the fear, go, oh, hang on a minute, it isn't just fear, it can also be the excitement.
Exactly. I love that you said that. Yeah, you can feel both things at once and be okay with that.
So in those moments as well, as you were saying, you go for a walk, I love that. The other thing I was actually thinking about is food, right? How many of us go to, in those moments of anxiety or fear, just bury our feelings in food? So talk to me about that, because again, the impact that then sugar has on you. So let's say, as we're talking about building our confidence and really being able to show up, to be strong, when you have these moments that maybe you fall to your knees, how do you act when you fall to your knees? Because that's the thing, homie, whenever I'm talking about confidence, it's about, well, hang on a minute. Yes, there's the upside, which we'll get to, but it's the downside. It's how do you deal with things when you fall? So when you fall, I love the walking thing, but also the food thing. How do you actually overcome that and not just gorge yourself on sugar?
Yeah, my go-to for pretty much every single emotion is food, and like the food that, like comfort food. So I've started, and by comfort food I literally mean like pizza and going out for like ice cream, and that's me, whether I'm like so excited, I've got friends coming over, let's order like 10,000 things and just everyone can eat together and be so happy together, and then if I'm really sad, I'm like, I really need to go get an ice cream, you know, or if any emotion was linked to food in that way. And now what I've tried to change what I think of as comfort food. So it's not that I still won't go and have a pizza or whatever whenever I'm feeling, but not linked to my emotions. And so comfort food to me now is what's actually comforting my nervous system. Like, not comfort food of what's comforting the feelings I'm feeling right now, but what is comforting and going to actually make me to my core feel better. And if you think about it, it's not going to be foods with empty calories. It's not going to be food that doesn't supplement my brain and my hormone levels and my emotions. Like, everything is linked to our gut and our hormone levels and our brain. And so am I going to eat food that's going to dull me further? Or am I going to have, you know, food that's bursting with nutrients that can also help elevate my mood? And so I'm really starting to do that. And with my friends, what I would normally do is order all that sweet sugar stuff and, you know, order donuts and ice creams. And instead now, and especially when my close friends come over, I'll just make a big salad with like all the best ingredients. And the thing is, everyone leaves feeling so much better after that interaction. We have better conversation. We're eating food that nourishes our body so much. And every single time I do that, they're like, I always want you to do that. Like, we always want to come and eat food that feels good for us. And I've realized that so much. And so now whenever I am feeling a certain way, I have like my go-to meals that I know nourish me. And the thing is, once you end up doing it a few times, you notice how you feel. So don't act in the moment of how you're feeling. Think about how you're going to feel after. Have you ever felt good? And look, you do feel great after sometimes indulging in like something that you really love. But if you do that consistently, you really don't. Like, every single time, and especially if you're doing it out of emotion. It's so different going to have like a meal that you really enjoy when it's at a level of excitement and joy, versus going to a meal that is not so great for you when you're already feeling down and out. And you then go to sleep, you wake up groggy the next morning. There's just so many so much domino effect to just having one meal and how it can impact you.
It's so true, but how did you break the habit? So thinking through even everything you've just said, it's the feeling of the now versus feeling in the future, right? How do you break that moment of this isn't for the now, but it's for the future? Because in those moments of sadness, upset, insecurity, the negative voice in your head, those feel so damn real in the moment. No matter what you tell yourself, Lisa, you're going to feel bad if you have that ice cream. You're going to feel bad if you're going to beat yourself up for not getting on stage out of fear. Like, whatever that thing is, you can say all the words in your head, but sometimes in that moment, your feelings feel so true to you.
Totally.
So how have you built habits and what have you done to try and break the listening to the now for the future you that is going to thank you?
I mean, there are still times now and then where I will give into it, but it's the feeling after that I remember every time I end up getting to that, right? Like every time I get to that moment, I have memory of the feeling of turning to, let's say, ice cream filled with sugar. I have the memory of how I feel afterwards, and it doesn't make me feel good. And by the way, I just want to say this, that it's not saying that we shouldn't eat foods that we love and enjoy. Sure. It's eating foods that are actually damaging our body. Like there's a difference, because I always see people saying, you should be able to just eat food that you enjoy and you should be able to indulge. Yes, but those things that you are indulging in are also harming your body. And so do we want to indulge and sense gratify, or do we want to create nourishment and fuel our body in a way that's going to lead it to success? One thing I did, which was phenomenal, was my go-to was sugar. I spent a whole week, or I would spend a whole week or 2 weeks where I'm not touching sugar at all. And it trained my body to feel how good it was. Like we were talking about before, where I had to get through that period of, I can't live without this. I need sugar after every single meal. I just need my hit every single, and it became so normal that I didn't realize in the first 3 days of when I stopped it, I was literally having what I imagined to be hangover effects. I could not function in the afternoon without having some sort of even if it was a small piece of chocolate or something to get me through the day. And it scared me of how reliable I was on something, and I don't want to be controlled by anything in that way. Just like we want healthy relationships with people, we should have healthy relationships with everything around us that we are relating with on a daily basis. And food is that too. And so how do I create a balance between not being controlled by anything or anyone? And if food is controlling me, then that's what I had to do, because I realized I went through a phase for a lot of my life where food was fully in control of me. And I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't have any of those, I wasn't addicted to anything in that way. But then I realized, and I used to use food as a thing of, well, food is, I have to eat. So it's okay for me to love food that much, but there's a difference because every emotion was linked to it, and therefore it was controlling me and I wasn't in control of it.
If you wake up every morning craving that first cup of coffee, but also actually dreading the bloating, the jitters, and the crashes that come with it, you're so not alone, especially for us women. But let's face it, what's the alternative? Zombieing through our morning half awake? Now, there's finally a coffee replacement actually designed for women from Peak called Nandaka. Every cup of Nandaka nourishes you and uplifts your energy instead of making you feel anxious and jittery. Nandaka is expertly formulated with the highest quality and purest ingredients to activate your metabolism, provide sustained energy, and balance your hormones. Kick your coffee habit and enjoy the endless wellness benefits from Nandaka from Peak. Now, for a limited time, you get 15% off plus a free starter kit and a bottle of Propolis throat spray when you shop the link you see on the screen, or you can find it in the show notes. That's 15% off plus a free starter kit. Transform your mornings with Peak.
And so going through periods where you are restraining yourself and creating healthy boundaries, just like you would a person, healthy boundaries with food is really important. And yeah, it's difficult the first 2-3 days. So is a breakup. It's really difficult after a breakup, and you go through all the emotions, and it's the same thing when you have that relationship with food. It's going to be hard, but every single day that you end up knowing you got to the end of the day and you didn't give in to that person or that thing, you didn't text them back, you didn't go to the fridge and get that chocolate that you wanted. Jay keeps his chocolate in the fridge. You just feel like it motivates you to keep going on day after day after day and holding yourself accountable to it.
So actually, speaking of then about boundaries with food, talk to me about how you've built confidence to set boundaries with people.
I think I'm still trying to figure out healthy boundaries with people. I have started doing, there are so many times people make me feel bad for wanting to go to sleep early, or, the routine that I have making me feel like I'm such a strict human, and that means I don't have fun. And I've kind of let go of that, and I've just realized that that's more on them than it is on me. So when I want to leave somewhere and go home early, I've stopped the guilt of oh, but it's my birthday. Just stay for like till 12, stay till 1. I'm like, I don't want to stay till 12 and 1. I want to go to bed by 10 o'clock. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you, and it doesn't mean that I don't care about you, but we just have different values. And I think I've had to differentiate between love for someone and the values that I have, and how you can still love someone but still maintain the values and things which are important to you. And they will learn that as you put up those boundaries, because a lot of the time people's expectations come from how you end up giving to them. So if you love bomb people at the beginning, which I think I've been a love bomber, I'd be like, even with friends, I'd be like, I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you, let me cook for you, let me, I don't know, everything. Like, I just want to be there and be that person that was valuable in their life, the complete person that was valuable in their life. And so I realized I was setting that tone. So then when I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, I'd set myself up for failure, because they were already expecting that, because I'd given that. Whereas if from the beginning you're able to create healthy boundary relationships, I think that's what I've started to do now, where I'm like, I'm not going to message someone every single day and set this tone of like, I'm just available all the time. Let me think of times where I am able to communicate and have better conversations, rather than trying to overcompensate when I know I don't have the capacity to do it. So it's been trying to set things from the beginning of a friendship, and then also being okay with knowing that my values are not a depiction of my love for them, and showing them other ways that I can care for them rather than compromising on what I want to do.
Dude, that's so strong. That was going to be my next question. Do you think that you were love bombing because you got some validation out of it?
Definitely. I found all my worth in it. I was like, great. So to this person comes to me for whenever they're in need, when like anything, boyfriend problems, like whenever anything would go wrong in their family, I'd be the person they'd call, and I would love being that person. And then I realized I loved being that person because that was literally the only place I was finding value in my life. And so I definitely had that. And that's why it was really interesting, actually, when I got married to Jay, because he wasn't that type of human. And I was used to being around that type of human. And he was someone who wasn't needing me to be an agony aunt to him. He didn't need me to solve his problems. He didn't need me to console him, but not to that degree where I had to like solve problems for him. He just was someone who wanted me to love him and support him, and just be, or wanted to love me, support me, and be there for me. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, what do I do then in this relationship? Like,
that's what I was going to ask you, because actually it could have been the opposite, right? Where you then go, hang on a minute, like I'm not valued in this relationship of how you saw your value, right? And so now that could have been the breaking point for you guys. So how did you actually work through, you were getting validation, maybe it wasn't healthy, and this is what a healthy relationship looks like?
It took a while. I really think that because then what I started doing was, I'll cook all of our meals. Like, let's say that's what I did at the beginning, where I was like, okay, he's such a self-sufficient human. What am I doing in this relationship? Like, what do I do? And obviously there's like providing love and care for someone, but also he's a self-sufficient human in care as well. So I'm like, this is so interesting. Like, what do I even do? So I was like, okay, cool. I'll do what I know how to do. I'm going to be the one who like cooks in the relationship. And then I realized that when you're doing it for those reasons, you kind of are doing it for validation and for reciprocation, or you want the person to say, this was so delicious, I really love this. Like every single day there's this like deep expectation of that validation from that. And it was almost souring our relationship for me to even, me doing that out of love and care, I would have never felt that way. But me doing that to find value in our relationship. And then what started happening was I started getting a bit busier. I wasn't cooking breakfast, lunch and dinner. By the way, he never expected me to either, but that was what I wanted to do. It was like my place as a woman, I'm going to do that. And when that started changing, because, you know, life got busy, I wasn't able to do things at the time I needed to. And so he figured out other ways, like he'd order lunch and he'd do that. And I started feeling so terrible. And I was like, so I'm like almost like, oh my gosh, I'm failing as a wife. Like I'm not doing the things I was supposed to be doing. So now what's my value? But the way I got out of it was he's a very validating person. And I think that makes a difference. Like he thanks me for like the tiniest things to like the big things. Like for him, everything is so appreciated, like deeply appreciated, that I started realizing, he would tell me, he was like, I never expected you to cook. I don't need you to cook for me. You can if you want to, but that was never an expectation of mine. And it made me realize that all of those things I was feeling was internally me versus something that was ever coming from him. And so I think you only really start finding value in a relationship when you find out what you are valuable for. And so when I started taking that journey of figuring out the parts of my personality or what I actually had to offer into the relationship, whether it was personality, whether it was support, like what type of friend am I? Like I didn't know that. What type of friend am I? Am I someone who sits and listens? Am I someone who can help you solve things? Am I someone who can bring a lot more fun into a time when you're feeling sad? And so when I started finding and identifying those little things about myself, I was like, oh, okay. Like now I see what value I can bring to a relationship or a friendship. And that helped me find my place and feel a bit more sturdy in that relationship.
That's so beautiful. But how did you then let go of the shoulds?
I still feel a little bit of guilt linked to it, but I realize it's so much to do with culture as well.
That's literally what I was going to ask you, because you even said like being the woman in the relationship. Same with me as being the grieved one. When I was, obviously serving, if you will, Tom for 8 years, I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was doing everything for him. And then I was just like, I don't want to do it anymore. No. But I had so much guilt.
So much. And when his mum would be like, oh, I feel like he just seems like he's getting weak, or he's skinny, or like he doesn't seem like, or whenever he would get unwell, she'd be like, oh, it's because he's eating this. Or I'd be like, oh my God. And then I had to realize, I was like, that's not on me. He's a grown-ass adult. Like, that's what I had to keep telling myself, because no one's cooking for me.
What?
No one's cooking for me. No one's doing that. And by the way, I don't want him to cook for me. That would be a really horrible experience. But
for different reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons. That's just not his thing. He will clean, but he's just not a cook. But yeah, I realized that we are all actually grown humans and we can all do things for ourselves. And so I had to differentiate the cultural aspect and expectations and why it had been infiltrated into my mind that you are not a wife or a woman unless you do this, this, and this. I had to take that separately to, what do I actually want to do? Is it stressing me out to the limits and not allowing me to do what I want to do because I'm focusing on trying to look after another human? And I don't think that should come until you have a child. Like, if you decide to have a child, you're taking that responsibility of a vulnerable, like, human that comes into the world. But with a grown adult that you're partnering with, it's not a taking care relationship. It's a reciprocal relationship, but it's not a, here, let me mother you. If I wanted to be a mother, I would become a mother. And so I had to keep like telling myself, I'm like, I'm a grown-ass adult. He is a grown-ass adult. We can reciprocate, but we don't need to be babying one another. Yeah. And so every time I feel that way, I do remind myself of that. I have like a conversation like, listen, you're fine.
Well, what's interesting, actually, recently, I did something for Tom and I can't remember what. It was like I cooked it. Oh, I think I took him out some meat. It was like something where I literally took him something out of the freezer. And he was like, babe, you don't need to do it. He's like, I've got it. And I was just like, no, I'm actually, and in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm doing this for me. And so I just told him, because he's like, would you stop doing it? You're telling me you're busy and here you are trying to take care of me over here. And I was like, no, I'm actually doing it for me. Yeah. And I said, so please actually stop telling me to not do it for you.
Yeah, that makes me upset too.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm bringing validation to myself, right? Because that's also important.
Yes.
Like, there are moments that you do the external validation thing where you're looking for somebody else to make you feel better. But I think it's important for you to make yourself feel better.
Yeah,
and so how do you build that validation? And so for me, it was, I actually feel good about doing this for you. But you have to be very careful between that fine line of you're doing it because you feel good versus it's a message you've been told since childhood that as a woman, being Indian, as a Greek Orthodox woman, being taught that your validation comes from that. And that's why I feel good about it. And so like this fine line.
That's how I felt about loving cooking. I was like, damn it, why am I so cliche? For goodness sake, like, oh yeah, Indian women just love spending time in the kitchen. And it would be so funny because when people come to our house, she would be like, this is Radhi's office, and it would be the kitchen. And if they didn't really have context, he would have to explain and be like, no, what I'm trying.
You male chauvinist.
Yeah, exactly. But I had to differentiate that too. I was like, am I cooking and doing all these things because it makes me feel like more of a woman? Or am I doing it because I just love it? And I did differentiate that, and I do just love it so much. And I love feeding people. And I do think what you're saying about, you wanted to do that part. Serving is such an important part of love. Like, being in service to someone, like I've noticed that so much, which is why I also love doing so much for my family, because genuinely without the desire for reciprocation, I can say that like 100%, because I feel that I am pouring so much into myself by serving them, that brings me so much more joy. And that's why I'm like, I love buying presents for people. I love like creating experiences for people. I love doing acts of service for people. It is part of my love language, and it fuels me just as much as it gives to them. So if you stop giving, I think that's a big barrier to happiness, joy, and like creating actual like love for yourself and other people in your life. Because I think acts of service and being able to serve other people is part of our human nature to want to do that. And so for me, that I've noticed that, and now I give without any thought of, is it too much? Am I doing a bit? I'm like, no, I want to do it. So I want to create this and I want to do it for people. And it's brought me so much more joy in my life by thinking of it in that way, and not double thinking what I'm doing.
But so many people have got into the habit for like 20, 30 years. Like I was in it for 8 years. Tom would wake up, his clothes were next to him. He would get out of the shower, his clothes were next to him. He would leave for work, I would give him a lunch. But like everything that he had to do outside, like I just took care of. And so
did he want that, or did you want that for him?
It was at the time because we were trying to like make movies. And so we had decided I would stay at home and support you, babe. You're going to go out and be an entrepreneur, and it's just going to be for 12 months.
Yeah.
Of course, that 12 months turned into 8 years. Right. So it became, I had a purpose. The purpose was just going to be for 12 months. But then you get into this perpetual motion.
Absolutely.
And then
it becomes your identity.
Yes. So it becomes your identity. That's where you get the validation from. And now you don't know how to get out. And so that...
And what would that mean if you get out? Like, who would I even be without that identity?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had to process, like, this doesn't make me a bad person, but I had to swing hard the other way to then find myself.
Did you go, like...
Yeah, like, I'm not taking care of any, like, if you got dirty underwear, turn your underwear inside out. I mean, there was even a one... And look, because he realised how unhappy I was,
yes, exactly.
There was in that support when he's like, babe, what... You really asking me, like, what's more important? Of course, my wife's happiness is more important than clean underwear.
Yeah.
So if I have to go commando to work one day, then I will. And then it actually happened. He didn't have clean underwear. So because he was so supportive, though, as he was leaving for work, he's like, I don't have any underwear, so I'm going commando. Bye, babe.
Aww.
You know, and he felt pride in being a part of helping
your
me.
Happiness.
Yeah. But I had to swing hard the other way to then find... Like, I had to let go of everything to then go, oh, okay, I actually do enjoy doing this. I actually do enjoy doing this. But it took me having to move away to then realise.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that get stuck in that for 20 years, especially if you've had kids.
Yes.
It's like your identity and then how you show up every day. And because you've been in service for so long, you sometimes don't know how to get out of it.
I had another situation it reminded me of, obviously with my book coming out. I have always been Radhi Devlukia, and people call me Radhi Shetty, or they'll call me Radhi Devlukia-Shetty or whatever. And I've never really been that bothered by it, but I chose to stay Radhi Devlukia when we got married. But naturally, whenever I would go on like TV shows or whatever, they would call me whatever they wanted that made sense to them versus it actually being who I was. And it was so interesting because for my book, I had actually signed my contract as Radhi Devlukia, but in the contract, they had said writing the book as Radhi Devlukia-Shetty. And I hadn't seen that. And so over the past couple of months, I've been in a constant kind of, I don't want to say battle, but a battle of being like, I want to be Radhi Devlukia. It's what I signed up. It's who I am. It is my identity. And I don't, the reason that, you know, naturally people know me as Radhi Shetty or Radhi Devlukia-Shetty because of who Jay is. And I completely understand that. And I'm like, I'm happy to be Jay's wife. Being said that I am Jay's wife, that's the truth. But for me, Radhi Devlukia is truth. And so I've had this anyway, I couldn't change it. But I realized that in that moment, I was thinking, it's so interesting that a man would probably never be in that situation where they're told, you know what, take your wife's name because it's going to be better for you to do that. And that for me was a difficult thing in the first place to be like, let me just do this because of X, Y, and Z. But I was contractually bound, so I had to carry on with it anyway. But it was so interesting to me because in that moment, and I actually spent like a couple of days crying about it because I was like, it felt so disrespectful to like, as a woman, to be in that situation, to be like, no man would ever have to even think about this. And then it also makes you feel bad as a woman to be like, oh, am I like really weird for not I had made that decision a long time ago. But in this moment, again, I had this reflection moment of, God, am I just being really silly? It's just a name. Like, why should I be fighting so hard to just keep my own name? And, it's not that bad. It's, as a woman, I should take his name. And I was like, what the hell? No man would be told to do that. No man would be told that they have to take their wife's name, even if they were, more whatever than they were. And you just reminded me of it because of identity. I was like, yeah, like we really do as women take on a lot more of the burden of identity and taking on your partner's identity more than men probably do in that respect because of how we're trained.
Yeah.
So that really irritated me.
Well, actually, don't mind, like, because this is super important, because when we go back to, like, the expectations that are put on us that don't allow us to really shine, to be the people we really want to be, like, that's the thing. Like, this is really the through line that when I was talking to you, I was like, girl, we got to keep going deep on, like, how you get through these, because these are the moments that get people stuck, where it's this one little expectation, this one little thing that it just becomes another notch, right?
Yeah,
and like the little,
it does.
That then ends up like
chips away.
You go, how have you actually worked on that identity piece? Because you are proud to be his wife.
Yeah.
So what is it about the resistance?
It's more about that, for me, especially coming from my culture, it represented more of equality in a partnership than it did anything else, because I wasn't expecting him to take my name, and he wasn't expecting me to take his name.
It's not traditional then for you to take your partner's name?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not traditional to even double barrel. Like me being Devlukia-Shetty is it would be full on take on that whole family. That family is now your family comes second.
Right.
Like in my culture, it's you call their mum. They are your mum before your original.
What?
It's actually like to that degree that it's expected.
Wow.
Once you marry into a family, and my in-laws are not that traditional, but like generally in our culture, once you marry into a family, your duties are fully to that family before your own family. Whoa. If there is like a family event, you go to their family event, you prioritize them over your own original family. And for me, I grew up in a family of 7 girls. We have no boys as grandchildren in the family. And we're all quite strong-minded women. And there was just a big part of me that felt strongly about when I'm coming together with someone, that doesn't mean I have to lose my identity, and I don't expect him to lose his identity. But why should it not be an equal partnership of, if you're keeping your name, then why should it even be a topic of conversation, or that the woman should be expected to do that? And so for me, it was more of a principle thing. It was more of like, when I grow up and if I'm talking to someone about it or my children about it, like how would I feel in 20 years time having compromised on something that I felt really strongly about? And it honestly hasn't been a topic of conversation even between me and Jay, because he really doesn't care. It's been more of a topic of conversation with everybody else. Right. And so, for me, it was really clear from the beginning that that's what I wanted to do. The only reason I would have even thought about double barreling is because of society, not because I felt like it was something I wanted to do.
And how do you deal with people maybe in society that have that push back now?
I feel like there's just so many things in my culture that need to be set straight from like our generation onwards. There is just so much inequality in the dynamic of women and men, especially in my culture, that I just think that that's one step. For me, that feels like one step towards creating that and having a woman feel like it's okay, and you can still be, you're still just as good of a daughter-in-law, you're still just as good as a whatever, but that does not mean you have to give up your entire life that you had with your own family to be part of another one. And so, for me, it really wasn't in question. I didn't even care what people called me. Like, if people were calling me Shetty or Devlukia-Shetty, I was like, whatever. But it kind of, I noticed it when I saw my name on the book, and I was like, oh, yeah, this doesn't feel right, because that's not how I've identified myself ever.
So have you worked through that emotion then? Because this is, again, the thing that can either make you resistant next from the time. Yeah, just like in general.
Well, it was honestly, it did take me, like, I think I cried about, like, I've got this picture of me on the phone to my sister that I took, that was literally like me and her laughing, because she also has those feelings about names as well. Like, her children are double-barreled as well to both of their names. And it was more, how did I even go through it? I cried about it a lot. I like really released all the emotions. I cried about it with my work. And again, you know, whenever I talk about this, I'm like, I feel like people will be like, it's just a name, like, relax, you don't need to cry about it. But it's not for me. It was so much more than that. Like, that's what it meant to me. So yeah, I cried about it. And then I worked through it in my mind of, you know what, if this is what it is, and it is a business thing, right? At the end of the day, it was basically business. That's what it boiled down to. And I also understood it from their point of view. Like, I do understand it. People search me as that. People see me as that. And so naturally, for them, it was a mixture of, hey, people are going to look for you, and they're going to look for you in that way. It's doing a disservice to the book by them not being able to even find it or search for it in the way that they would. And so I understood it from that perspective too. So then it was reasoning and coming to terms with that. Maybe I'm not always right in this situation. There's a lot more to think about than just this value that I'm holding so close to me, and how much I've poured into the book and how much I have given to it, that if that means less people will reach it or find it. And so, you know, I think from now, once I have my own space and have my own place in, you know, the cookbook world, maybe in my next book, I'll be able to change it back and have that identity back. But for now, I'm seeing it as a small loss for a greater win. And I cried through it, I worked through it, I processed it in my mind to not feel like I'm compromising, because that's also bad. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm feeling guilty for something that I'm like, oh, I compromised my value for something like that. But sometimes you just have to not take things so deeply. And that's what I've realized. I'm like, I could still be thinking about it over and over again every single day, or I can make the best of an amazing situation and be like, okay, cool. I lost some, I'm winning some. Yeah. And that's just how life goes.
That's beautiful. And then going back to the purpose, right? Is that, okay, this book actually is going to serve people.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, look, I do a show called Women of Impact. So you know I freaking empower women all the time. And I've taken my husband's name, and I love that I've taken his name. And even, God, it was Christmas time. And me and my family, all his family got together, my family got together. And I love Tom sitting at the head of the table. Now, my mother-in-law seemed a little tripped out by that. And I think because I'm very much all for female empowerment, I was like, I love seeing Tom at the head of the table, and I love sitting next to him, like on the side. And I really had to process. I'm like, oh my God, am I going against like my female homies here? And I was like, actually, no, go back to the root of how you feel, Lisa. Because there are some expectations that have been put upon women that I vehemently disagree with. Vehemently. You should never have to do anything. No. Right? And so I very much believe that. But I didn't do it because I had to. And so I had to kind of go back to grounding myself on how I feel about a certain situation, and then being proud of it, and it not being a reflection of me being a weaker person. Right. That I really struggle with for a bit, because I'm like, oh my God, does that make me weak? Yeah. And I was like, no, actually, I saw my dad sit at the head of the table and I freaking loved it. Oh, yeah. And so seeing my husband there, I love it. And it doesn't diminish my confidence. It doesn't diminish how I feel about myself. Definitely. And I think that those are the differences, right? And you not taking his name, or taking his name, or me, you know, having Tom at the head of the table. I think it comes back down to, how do you feel about that situation? And are you doing it because of an expectation that's been put on you by your culture? Because the Greeks are the same, right? The man's the head of the table. But there was this joke in my big fat Greek wedding where it was like, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. Oh, yeah. She gets to turn the man's head any way she likes. And I just love that.
That's a good one, actually.
I love that analogy. That's the thing, is like, it doesn't make you weak, right? The fact that you ended up having to, it doesn't make you weak, homie. It makes you look at the same situation, go, what are my values? Yeah. What is my purpose? And am I showing up in truth of my purpose? And so everything we've been talking about today with building your confidence, how do you let go of the expectations that are upon us? I think it goes back down to, like, and we've said, you've repeated it so many times, is going back to how you feel authentically.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think I also have learned to, and not invalidating my feelings, but I do think about this all the time, especially when I hear about, you know, getting the things that happen in the world. Sometimes I'm like, okay, we can get over this a bit faster. Like, I don't need to be sitting in this for that long, and things are going to happen and we have to move on from it. Like, I just think in the grand scheme of life, again, like I said, I felt it, I processed it, but I don't need to keep harping on about the same thing over and over again. And I think that's really important too, because I think it's very easy to keep feeling like victim mentality of like constantly like this went wrong and then this went wrong, and you kind of end up lacking gratitude in so much more that has happened in life. And I think I've experienced people who are like that, who always see the negative before the positive. And I'm like, we can still see negative and positive, but like there has to be a balance of, it's also about how you're seeing things, right? Like you can see a whole situation and it can be completely negative, or you could see like some sort of light in it and hold on to that to push yourself on and move on from it. And I just think that there is a really big danger of constantly seeing the negative, because if you start seeing in your own life, you'll start seeing in other people, then you'll start seeing in every other situation, and then your whole life and your whole mind becomes very entrapped in this state of constantly feeding off negativity. And I think I've just really learned that does not serve me in any capacity. So I'd rather just...
So what does that act actually look like? The act of going, okay, I see the negative and now I have to pivot and see the positive. So again, going back to the things that we've already spoken about, it's easy to almost lean towards the negative, because I'm sure back in the caveman days, right, it was like hearing rustle in the woods. It's like, oh shit, it might be a tiger. So you're actually trained to look out for the negative because it used to save your life. Now in today's society, it doesn't necessarily serve you all the time. So how do you pivot in those moments? And actually, what are the habits that you do in your life to stay positive?
I do. Yeah, I think sometimes we also stay in the negative. I just want to add, because it gives us a place of like people looking after us or thinking, oh, are you okay? Like you end up feeling more cared for when you're in a negative state. And so I do think that plays a role too. Like if you're someone who's always in need, then usually you always have people who are coming to your rescue or coming to help you or paying a bit more attention when you're down, right? Like that's usually what happens. How do I get through it? So, I mean, I feel like this is just the most overused word, but the most powerful word is just gratitude. Like, honestly, that's the only thing I can go back to. Every single time I feel a negative emotion in me, I go through the process of, for me, crying, which is release for me. So releasing out anything that is trapped mentally, physically, or emotionally in my mind. And then I'll also write it out, like write down why I'm feeling that way or vocalize it. Like I called my sister and I was just like blubbering everything that I was feeling and thinking about that was coming to my mind, going this way and then going that way. And, you know, everything that encompasses that situation. I had to talk it out. And sometimes I'm actually someone who doesn't talk about things a lot. I will process myself. And then if there's still stuff left over, I will then share. But with this situation, I spoke about it with my 2 girls that I work with. I spoke about it with my sister. Like I felt like I needed to really talk about it to process it. So for me, it's talking about things, releasing, which is crying. And then the third thing for me is then thinking about, okay, how can I see the positive aspect of this? Like, what is the silver lining? What is the part of this which I'm so happy to be? Why is the situation so good for me also? And I remember this quote which someone said, which is, there is like, even in the worst of times, there are still things to be grateful for. And I really do believe that. And I noticed that even when my grandma was in hospital, like every single day, I was staying with her in hospital when she was. And it was just, God, I'm so bad with my grandma. I always cry about it. But for me, the most amazing part was being there with her every single day. And so even though it was so scary that she was there, I was able to spend a whole month, nearly a whole month, every single night, sleeping with her, looking after her in the hospital. And for me, that was like so beautiful. So even when you go through things like that, I'm like, the opportunity I got to serve her and be around her and spend time with her, for me, that was like the most beautiful part of it. And so yes, it was her being unwell and ill, but for me, it was like, wow, I got to spend that time with her that I would have never, ever got. I would have never taken out that time to spend with her, but that was my time to be able to serve her back for everything she's done for me. And I was like, how lovely to have that experience with her. So I guess the reason I brought that up was because even in really difficult times like that, there is always gratitude that you can squeeze out of it. And I think if I could do that in that situation, there is no way I can't do that throughout my life in so many other situations. And that's probably one of the hardest situations for me. So yeah, I think it's squeezing gratitude out of everything. And even if you can't find it, there's finding perspectives from other people. Because sometimes we are in such a dark place that you can't see that. Like you can't see it because you're so deep in it. But usually from other people's perspective, like if I talk to you about something, I feel like every time I have spoken to you about certain things, you're like, oh my God, but how amazing is that you got to do this? Or how incredible that you even, another friend's perspective can also suddenly shift your own mindset. Because sometimes when you're so deep in the darkness of like, you're in the muddy and you're in the sticky parts of it, sometimes it's hard to see it. But then speaking to other people, you just gain something else. So there's something which my friend said recently where she said she's been through two types of grief in her life, and one of them was her dad who passed away when she was younger, and then her mum who passed away recently. And I said, what was the difference between the two for you? And she said that when her dad passed away, she locked everyone off. It was almost like she created this huge barrier around her and didn't allow anybody in, to the point where if someone said, let me hug you, when you feel that, no, don't hug me, I'm going to cry. Like, I just don't want anyone close to me. She said the difference was in the second time I surrendered. And I just so if someone said, let me cook for you, I said, yeah, of course you can. If someone said, can I give you a hug? I said, yes, of course you can. So she said that by allowing other people in at the times that you are feeling your worst, it almost is like, it replenishes you in so many different ways. So normally we're used to putting up guards when we're feeling so bad or when you're not feeling great, but actually surrendering and allowing people to pour into you is also such a great way to heal and uplift yourself.
You said, you call your mom or you call your sister. Yeah. Do you think about who you're calling? Because that's the other thing. Yeah. Because there are some people, there's the tough love, or there's the, oh my God, everything's okay, right? Sometimes when everyone's just like, no, everything's okay, again, you then go deeper into the wallow. But sometimes it's needed, like what you said, is the surrendering. So where's that fine line between surrendering and not wallowing in the comfort that is given to you in those moments?
I have identified my people for that. Like I know the people who will want to sit in sorrow with me. And there are also sometimes, and this is not by fault of them, but there are people in your life who value sorrow more than they do happiness. And you have to be really careful about that, where it's almost like seeing someone else in a place of upset makes them feel happier, because it's almost like misery wants company, right? And by the way, that doesn't mean those people still don't love you, but it just means that that's the place that they're in. And I've noticed those people who, when I say something is wrong, they're like, so tell me more, what else, what's happened? Like, and they kind of want to know because it comforts their misery. And so I have like maybe 3 people in my life that I can go to that I know, even if it's going to feel horrible, they're going to comfort me, but then they're also going to give me the slap around the face and be like, okay, well, this is what we need to do. Like, we're not going to just keep talking about this. If you want to keep talking about it, then we need to figure out what the solution is, because we're not going to just sit in repeating over and over and over again. And so you only really need one person for that, honestly. Like, you need to find that one good person who's going to give you that time to console you, but then also going to help you come back to reality and give you that solution. And sometimes, to be brutally honest, that person may just be you, because not everybody has those people in their life. And so there are going to be times where no one around you is going to be your support system, because they don't have the capacity to do that for you. There's going to be times where your friends don't have the capacity to support you. And that's why becoming that person. So I really have learned to try to start processing things by myself before I go to other people, because at the end of the day, people don't have unlimited capacity to give to you, to nurture you, to support you. And if you're constantly, the moment you feel upset, running to someone else, you're essentially counting on them to make you feel better. When actually we are also responsible for that part of our life too. And that's how I've taken it. I'm like, do I want to be a burden to everybody every time I feel a little bit upset? And especially when people love you, they do feel that burden a lot. They're worrying about you. They're thinking about ways that they can fix it for you, even when they may not have the capacity to do so. And so for me, finding ways to self-soothe, just like a baby does sometimes, like self-soothing is really important before you go out and expect other people to do that for you.
Yeah, God, I am such a cheerleader of that. Yeah. And I started to realize, like, I was turning to Tom because he's my comfort, right? I've been with him for 23 years. So it's like, anytime there was a problem, I would go to him. And God bless him, but he was the guy that's just like, he just wants to solve it.
Yeah.
Right? So he goes straight into problem solving mode. And I'm like, I just need to
Such a man
Yeah,
thing.
such a, and bless. So now we have language that we even use. He's like, do you want me to listen? Or do you want me to fix it? And then I'll pause.
Like, I just want to rant, okay?
Yeah. And he's like, you haven't answered yet. And I'm like, I just want you to listen. And so he's like, all right, come here. Like, I've got you. And then the second I need him to fix it, he'll be like, all right, this is what you need to do. And this is what you have to say. And this is how you have to do. You know, and he'll always be very honest. And sometimes he's just like, yeah, you're at fault here. And you're the one that needs to, you know, go and apologize or you need to do this. And so because I know I'm going to get that truth, it's very comforting. But to your point, I realized I've got to start solving this myself. I've got to be at the point where I know how to do it, because I feel good about myself as well if I'm able to course correct. So what are the things that you do from a health perspective and a mindset perspective? Because we've spoken so much offline just about our hormones and the foods we eat and how much this impacts how we feel. And so talk to me about what routines you do just from a health perspective so that you can stay strong in these moments of feeling sad, that you have the emotional and physical capability to get back up.
Yeah, because it's not how you spend. Like, I remember when I started meditating, that one of the teachers said it's not about how you spend those 2 hours, it's about how you spend those other 22 hours. Ooh. So like how you're able to meditate in those 2 hours is going to be determined by the life that you're living in those other 22 hours. And so I see this in the same way. It's almost like building up. It's like when you're going for a really long hike and you make sure you take all the things that you need. You take your water with you. You prepare for it, right? And so we all know we're going to have those moments. So how are you preparing for it in the rest of your life is going to determine how low you fall in those moments and how fast you get back up. And so for me, the things I've noticed have worked is I get my bloods checked at least every single year, if not more. And the reason I do that is because as women specifically, our hormone levels change so much. I found out I had high estrogen levels, which affects why I cry so much. Like, it is part of it, being really emotional, being someone who can have the tendency to feel really upset quite fast. And all those things help me to understand that, like, when you end up having the knowledge, it helps you to understand yourself better. And not that I can blame it on that, but I can be like, oh, maybe I am over-exaggerating about this a little bit because I do have this. So I know that it's not necessarily as deep or as bad as it feels right now. So I would say because a lot of the things that we feel emotionally and hormonally are fixable. And we always think that it's our mind and it's mental and it's something which is, it's something that we can't solve because it's emotion related. Like, people think emotions are not solvable with physical things, but actually a lot of our emotions and the way that they are affected can be physically changed based on what you're doing for your mind and what you're doing for your body. So I say get your bloods checked on a regular basis, because if you're deficient in vitamins, it affects your hormones. If you're low in iron or in vitamin D, it affects your mood drastically and your energy levels. If your energy levels are low, it affects your mood. If your mood is affected, you're going to cry all the time or get angry all the time. You're going to be agitated. And so when you find that out, depending on what it shows, start eating the foods that are rich in the vitamins and the minerals that you need. Now, there are so many, and again, it can be boiled down to simply eating foods which have vitality in it. And in Ayurveda, they call it ayurvedic, and they're the foods which are the most nutrient dense. Like, if you're feeling a little bit dead inside, eating food that is nutritionally dead is gonna contribute to it, right? And so eat foods which are filled with vibrance and vitality and vitamins and minerals that supplement your body in that way. And that's just eating a really wholesome, fresh diet. Like, start with that. Eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and things which have those vitamins. And again, by the way, if you end up eating a strawberry that's been freshly picked or close to it versus a strawberry that's been in a store for about 3 weeks and then made it to you and then been in your fridge for a week, the nutrient value is going to be extremely different. And so understanding that also, that even if I think I'm eating healthy foods, like how rich are they still in the nutrients that I need in my life? And so if that's not helping, or if you're not able to do that to that capacity, take some supplements with you. Like, make sure every single day you're committing to taking the vitamins you need to support your mood, your energy levels, and your vitamin deficiencies. I've started doing that again. I was really lazy with my vitamins, and in the morning I'd forget. And I've started doing that for even, I think, like 2 weeks now. And I can notice it making, it really does support you, especially if you're that deficient in something. I'm very deficient in vitamin D. Just getting vitamin D shots has, stopped those lulls in the middle of the day. It stopped those energy drops. It stopped the feeling of lethargy and feeling a bit dull inside. It really does make such a difference. So...
And if you don't even have, just go outside.
Go outside. Yes, exactly. Go outside and get fresh air and feel. One thing I find disconnects us, or one thing I find really affects our emotions and our energy levels, is disconnecting from nature and not realizing how much we can gain from it, because we're living amongst nature, we are part of it, we're not living in it. And we have to realize that the energy that we can receive from just being able to connect back to nature is so important. That's why our circadian rhythm exists, right? We connect to the way that the sun comes up and the moon comes up, and our water levels and our body levels are all linked to that. And so as soon as you start realizing your connection with nature and living aligned with it, again, sleeping when sleeping as close to when the sun goes down as possible is really, really impactful, because you get the moon energy, which brings so much to your body. And there's just so many parts to it. But connecting back to nature simply by going out for a walk is so important. Getting fresh air is so important. And movement. The last thing I'll say is movement has been a huge part of balancing my energy levels and my hormones. And I used to think it was as high impact as possible. I would be like, I'm going to box, and I still do boxing, but I've slowed it down a lot. And one thing for women that's quite important to know is our estrogen levels actually are elevated when we do a lot of intense exercise, because it's related to our cortisol level as well. And so the more stress we put our body in, it actually increases our estrogen levels. And so doing what I've swapped to is still doing workouts that make me sweat, but doing weight training a lot more, slow movements that are impactful, but not extreme cardio that's putting my body into a high stress mode regularly. And so I've switched my movement to either walking 10,000 steps, which, by the way, takes a long time. I just want to say I've been doing it.
Steps, well done.
10,000 steps has taken me. I did an hour and a half on the treadmill this morning while I was doing meetings and stuff. But I still need to do another 2,000. It does take quite a while. But if you think about it, it's 2 hours of your day out of 8, 9, 10 hours that you're sitting sedentary. So movement, slower movements that also calm your nervous system and allow it to reset and replenish. That's so important. And then sleep. I have a really routine sleep. And again, if you're a mother, that's different. If you're someone that does night shifts, that's different.
I was literally, so night shifts, so I really want to hear your evening routine, but night shift, the rate of depression on people that do night shifts, because your circadian rhythm is completely screwed. And then especially if you're a night shift doing inside work, like stocking shelves, so now you're not even outside, it's like a double whammy, and people don't realize how much that contributes. And that's why I think mothers are so depleted, because you're never getting into your full cycle of sleep.
No.
And so you're not necessarily getting all the REM sleep that you need. And so giving the women grace when they're, especially with newborns, oh my God.
Definitely.
But then understanding what's happening, because I think that's a big key. If you don't know what's happening, and now they're trying to get sleep in between naps and things like that, or even if you're not, and you're just a woman who is on the grind, right? And you're really trying to build something, and so you're working really hard, and so you sacrifice your sleep. It's oh my God, you don't realize what knock-on effect that's going to have in 3 months, 6 months, to how you feel about yourself. And now you've worked so hard for something, but you actually don't feel great because you're not getting your sleep.
And when you sleep is when not only does your mind process things, that's why you end up feeling so forgetful if you don't sleep enough, because that's when your mind is also processing and storing information. It's also when your gut is gets the opportunity to rest before it starts digesting. It's also the time that your nutrients are assimilated into your muscles and your tissues. There is so much that during this restful time that your body gets to do, and if it misses out on that, it's affecting your gut, your brain, your energy. Like when I don't get sleep, I can't lift as much at the gym. I can barely like walk for,
walk to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of those things, and again, this is obviously, it's just such a living a holistic life. What does that mean? It means looking after each compartment of your life and being mindful of each compartment of your life. And look, there are going to be times where women are hustling and they just can't look after every part. And so know that for 6 months, I'm going to have to compromise on this amount of sleep. But then that means in these areas, I'm going to make sure I am boosted. And so, yes, you can't be 100% in all of these areas of your life in one go. It's really difficult to do that. But decide which one you are okay with compromising, and then make sure those other areas are really solid. And that can stop you from, since I've started really focusing on those areas, my immune system is so much stronger. My gut is so much better. My sleep is so much better. And the way that I deal with emotions and the way that I am able to bounce back after having low moods and low periods, even though I still have high estrogen levels and still am prone to it, it's helped me in those moments to be like, you know what, I've got this. Like my body has the capability to deal with it.
If you're not feeling strong and healthy on the inside, it's nearly impossible to show up and crush your goals and dreams. Take it from me. I ignored my health for so long, and it had such a negative impact on my life, my confidence, and my self-esteem. And that's why I want to tell you about Joy Women's Wellness. Joy Women's Wellness helps women like you and me take control of our well-being so we can feel like us again. Joy Women's Wellness will do a simple blood draw and then give you a super in-depth functional health report. And together with your clinician, you can come up with a game plan for how to balance your hormones, get your energy back, and start sleeping through the night. So prioritize your health and just feel better from the inside out. Click the link below and run over to Joy to get your levels checked right now. And guys, if you use my coupon code, they're going to give you 10% discount so you can go and get started. That's choosejoy.co. Oh God, I love that. And then I assume that knock-on effect really does then show up on how you show up every day, like having the confidence to go on stage recently and write a book and all of these things.
If your nerves are out of whack and you're not, I always think of nerves as being like I always think of it as your baby self, right? Like if your nerves are not well soothed and feel safe, and again all of these things allow that part, then in the moments of fear you are going to want to hide, you are going to want to take shelter, and you're going to want to stay in your comfort zone. You're going to be protecting yourself because every other part of your life feels so up in the air. And so if I always think about it in this way, if you're able to discipline yourself in one area, it usually helps seep into all the other areas. If you start going out of whack in one area of your life, it slowly seeps into all the other areas of your life. And so I've noticed that if I commit to one thing in one part of my life, it builds up confidence and helps me to do the same in every other part. We've gotten so used to putting our health into other people's hands and tuning out completely and being like, hey, I'm like literally giving all of our power away to everybody else around us when it comes to our health. And we're like, oh, this Instagrammer said that this is what helped them. I'm going to do this. This doctor told me that I should do this for my body. I'm going to do this. But there is, even if you're not a health professional, you live inside your body. You know when you eat something and it doesn't sit well in your stomach. You know when you do something and it makes you feel good 2-3 hours later. There is signs that your body gives you day in, day out to tell you, I'm happy, I'm not good, I'm feeling unwell, this didn't work well for me. But you have to take the time to tune in and listen. And that's what we are lacking because we're waiting for everyone else to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing. So I'd say more than anything, start listening to your body and what your mind is telling you, and go from there. Like start from scratch and start actually listening. Yeah, God, I was listening to doctors for so long when I had such bad gut issues, and in listening to the doctors, they were telling me to try this, try that. And they can only tell you from theory, right? Yeah. And I was like, well, they must know. Yeah. And so the fact I want to slap myself in the face, the fact that I was listening to professionals over my own body, I'll never do that again. But going back to if you've been doing that your whole life, you don't know where to start. No. So what I did is you know what? Instead of listening to everybody else, I just need to start listening to myself. Nice. So I just started taking inventory again, and I had a food diary. And at the end of every evening for about 6 months, 6 months, homie, I was writing every day.
I woke up at this time. I had a bowel movement at this time. How many times did I pee? What did I eat? At what time did I eat? How did I sleep? And I literally every day just started taking inventory. And I started to realize patterns. And so the patterns were, interesting. Every time I had to shoot, so this was actually before Women of Impact when it was just Tom's show. And so I was executive producer. It was every time before a shoot, I would have the worst gut. And I was like, is that stress? Okay. Oh, I was eating while I was stressed. Oh, what if I don't eat while I'm stressed? Would that make a difference? And so I started now, like every dinner time, I'll stop and eat my dinner in peace. I'll stop work. I'll go back to work after, but I'll just stop. So it allowed me to take control. And then the next thing that I realized was eating 3 hours before bed. Because to your point is your gut just slows down.
It does.
And so I was eating at like 8:30 and then I was going to bed at 9 o'clock.
Food's not being digested properly.
Yeah, so I was waking up with stomach cramps. And so just by, if anyone's listening at home, like, and they're fine, just start taking inventory and start to, and then it made me start to listen to my body because I had to write it down. So in writing it down, I was like, oh, how do I feel? Oh, I actually feel better today.
Exactly.
And that allows you to take your power back.
It does. And even if, you know, some things that I find really useful about devices now, like I don't love wearing a lot of devices that monitor me too much. Like I find that I'm like unnecessary rays that I probably don't need in my body. But for short periods of time, I do it. Like I'm doing it right now. And so I will assess my body knowing like what my sleep is, like just taking, again, inventory, right? But there are tools now that we can use. Like even if you don't want to do all the work, there are things that we can use. I'm using this thing right now. It's called Lumen. Have you seen it before?
Oh, no.
I just saw it online. I was intrigued because it's basically this thing where you measure in the morning, it's a breath thing and it tells you in what state your body is in, whether it's like metabolizing fat or carbohydrates or whatever it's metabolizing in the morning. And what it's been teaching me is I normally finish eating by 6:30 p.m. Like that's my cutoff. When I've had things, even if it's small things, around 8 o'clock, like if I decide I want a piece of chocolate or maybe I end up eating a little bit later, my results are so different when it shows me that I'm still burning carbohydrates when I wake up in the morning, which means my body is still digesting the food versus being in fat metabolism, which is where your body should be when it's in a fasted state. And so it's been so interesting to see even the 2-hour difference of stopping eating at 6:30 and then eating again something at 8 o'clock. I've been seeing clear signals. I've been doing it for a week and it's just shown me so much about my body and how it metabolizes things. And I think that's also helped me now make conscious decisions of what I'm eating and when I'm eating it. Sometimes you do need that information in your face of telling you, oh, I didn't get sleep. I thought I had, but I didn't get good sleep today. Let me make adjustments in my evening or my morning to help that. But I think we've got so many tools now, don't we, that can really help us.
It's so powerful, honestly. Like, I don't think, especially women, talk enough about looking after your health so that you can have the confidence in whatever you want in life. And as I started to really lean into confidence and how people, the tools people can use, there is that part where we started from, right? Where it's like, say this and do this. And like, that's so freaking powerful. But if you don't feel good, you're never going to be able to do any of that. No. And so we dismiss the health part of it because it's hard. It's freaking hard to what you were saying earlier, where it's like setting boundaries with your friends that you're not going to go out at midnight because you want to feel good the next day because maybe you've got something you've got to show up for.
Exactly.
And so anytime that we're talking about this, it's such a disservice that if we don't touch on the health part, because it's the foundation that then allows you to do everything else.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're so right. If you don't have those foundations, everything is difficult.
Yeah.
Like, everything becomes way more difficult when you don't have those things.
And as women, because we have our hormones and we have our cycle, there is going to be a certain week, like I can't even remember, but I think it's like the week before your period is when you feel the worst.
I started reading that book after you told me about it.
Did you?
In the Flow.
Yes,
it was so amazing. It was so great to read like how we get onto this other like male's rhythm versus our rhythm and how much of an impact it actually has on our body. And now even the tool that I'm using right now, it tells me like these are the foods you should be eating when you're in this phase of your cycle. And I'm like, that's really so useful to know. Women don't know how to change their body according to that. So I found that so interesting. Yeah,
great book. So now I want to talk about your morning and evening routines based on everything that you've learned then. What are you currently doing? Give me step by step, homie.
Oh my gosh, okay. Step by step morning routines. I wake up and then what time do I wake up? I normally wake up around like 5:30. That's usually my like sweet spot time. Sometimes if I feel really well rested, I'll get up a bit earlier, but usually around 5:30.
No alarm, I assume.
No, so my body wakes me up. Like it really does, but I will set an alarm, but I'm usually awake before it, just in case I like end up missing it. But I do on weekends, even if I like, I really want a lion, and then I'll wake up at like 6 and I'm like, great, a lion. Yeah. But yeah, so I wake up and then I normally go to my kitchen first and I'll do hot water, and I'll do it either with CCF, which is like coriander, cumin and fennel seeds. You can just like boil it in the water, or you can have a powder of it. That really helps. Well, it's meant to really help with your digestion and with like just detoxing in the morning before you start adding everything to your body. Or I'll do like hot water and lemon in the morning, one of them. So I do that, and then I usually take that into my meditation. And I do mantra meditation. We've spoken about this before, but yeah, I do my meditation, which is usually about an hour and a bit. Hour and a half, hour and a bit.
And mantra meditation, for people that don't know, if you don't mind.
Mantra meditation. So man means mind, and tra is like pretty much like to transcend. So it's essentially using words or mantras, which are sound vibrations. So words that I use in Sanskrit, which help you to stay focused and attentive during your meditation practice. So some people say the same word over and over again. I have like a small phrase that I say over and over again. And then I also use everything from beads to keep my hands engaged in it. Like what I found has helped me the most during meditation is trying to engage all my senses in the practice, because that's usually where we get distracted. It's like you hear something or, you're wanting to go, you see something and, you want to go fix it around your house or whatever. So finding one space, even if it's just like one cushion, and then trying to engage all your senses. I light incense or candles that reminds my mind that smell is linked to my meditation practice. And then I'll put on some music I really enjoy, like flute music or ocean music. I'll put that on in the background.
You don't listen to Jay on Calm?
Don't listen to Jay on Calm. No, I haven't quite got there yet. Apparently it's very good. So I do that, and then I usually work out. So now that I have like a small team, I really want to be at work by the time they're at work. I used to work out a little bit later. So now I then, from my meditation around 7ish, I'll start do my workouts. And like weight training, or I'll do a bit of boxing, or now I started walking a lot more, which is nice. And then come back, get ready. I tried to do I used to try and write a lot more in the morning, but now I have a section in my phone, which is like my notes page. And I just jot down anything that has come to my mind, whether it's like a repeated thought of something that irritated me, or whether it's a thought of something that I want to read up on, or, whatever has been in my mind from the night before. I try and notice that, because it's obviously something that's stuck in my mind. So I try to write that down, and then I'll kind of go back to that maybe in the evening to see what I want to do with it. But I usually try and blurt out anything so that it's kind of done and dusted to start my day fresh.
Because otherwise you find that it just kind of weighs on you.
Yeah, otherwise, and also I want to know what am I thinking about repeatedly, and why am I thinking about it? And so I usually try and get that done. And then I start my work day. And then my evening routine is finish work by about 6 o'clock. Well, with the book, I've been working at all hours, but usually by about 6 o'clock. And then I have this thing about I don't like using artificial light at all. I find that really, I like watching the sun go down. I appreciate, and obviously in winter it's quite difficult, but I've started using a lot more candles, or using dim lights, or, trying to use as much natural light as possible, because I do find that it really does affect your circadian rhythm, about putting, really kind of throws it off about knowing when it's light outside and when it's not. And also, actually getting light in from the moon and the sun is such a beautiful part of creating that rhythm within your body. So I really try to do that. I normally try and go outside during the time of sunrise, because I really appreciate having that moment of the switch of energies from morning to evening, or day to night. And then I'll eat by 6:30, so cook my meal. And then it's either, depending on how we're feeling, reading, watching something that we want to wind down with, but everything is usually done by about 9 o'clock, and then I'll start my skincare routine. I love having, we were talking about this earlier, I have this little thing on the floor when I'm brushing there's so much I do during the moments of brushing my teeth. So I'm brushing my teeth, and at the same time I have a marma mat on the floor. A marma mat is a pressure point mat. And it's so good because you can just step on it while you're brushing your teeth for those like 3 minutes or whatever. And it really helps with circulation in your body and helps with the lymphatic drainage of your body. So it's so simple. You can just add it into your morning or evening routine, but you're just stepping on it. And then tongue scraper. Everybody who doesn't use a tongue scraper, you don't know what it feels like to have a clean mouth. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Tongue scrapers are so important. They're a part of like my culture. I've used it since I was really young, but it's an Ayurvedic thing as well. It's basically a metal brush which you use, a metal like rod, I guess, and you're scraping your tongue, and it really helps to get rid of a lot of the bacteria that's accumulated on your tongue. And they say that your tongue, like when you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, they'll look at your tongue first because a lot of disease is shown just by the way that your tongue is. Wow. Yeah, so using a tongue scraper is very important. Then I love a good skincare routine at night. Just like a bit of I think little moments of self-love throughout the day are really important. And for me, an evening like skincare routine does just that, because you're also like, there's something about, you know, we love being hugged by people, but also doing that for yourself. So whether it's giving yourself like a little massage with oils or a little massage on your face, you know, using scents that you love to help soothe you into the evening. And then the last thing I do, which has been really impactful for me, as soon as I get into bed, I do a body scan. And I love doing this. It's been so great because you do not realize where you are holding tension throughout the day. You really don't. Trust me when I say this, because when you do this practice, you'll realize. You go through each body part and you basically say, relax. Like you tell that part of your body to relax. And the amount of time I've noticed that my jaw is so tight, or that my shoulders are actually up here and they need to be down here, or that I'm clenching at like even my calves or my knees, like so many places that I notice that I'm just holding on to so much. Even in my fingers, they'll be like, sometimes because I've been on my phone and stuff, they'll be like stuck like this. Not really, but you know what I mean? You feel that tension in your hand. And so just creating that moment of lying down and working your way through. It can take literally like 2-3 minutes of just going through your body parts. But that's been beautiful to just get into that restful state, and then I fall asleep like a baby.
Dude, I love the body scan stuff.
Right?
Yeah, like I remember when I was like, God, I'm really finding it hard to fall asleep. Why am I? And I was like, oh, actually I'm able to fall asleep when I scan my body.
Yeah,
exactly. Because it actually prevents my mind from wandering. Because I start to go to like, inevitably, like I beat myself up over something that happened that day, or like,
thinking
oh my
about
God,
what you have to do tomorrow.
Yeah, or like, okay, you got to remember this. There's always, my mind's just always wandering. So I was like, okay, we go back to your body. And the whole scanning, I was always like, oh wow, my forehead. I'm finding all the freaking time. And my jaw. Same. Those were the two things that I'm like, I had no idea that I was just holding on to so much tension.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to then fall asleep.
It does. It's such a great tool to, if you can't fall asleep, to help you fall asleep, but also to help you get into that state of like being more present in that moment to allow you to fall asleep so your mind doesn't wander, for sure.
What about your body temperature? Do you set the room to a certain
colder,
temperature?
yeah, always below 70. So I'm normally at like 69. I like it a good 69.
Yeah.
But then like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, God, it's so cold in here. But for sleep, I find that really helps knock me out. Being like comfy and cozy in your blanket.
There's these new pads now that you can put on your bed that it detects your body temperature, and you can have separate ones. So like for women, especially as you're going through hormones changes, especially, you can have, so Tom and I had one, it wasn't this high technology, and I'm going to look into this one, but it sees the temperature, or it knows, and so it helps regulate.
Cool.
Because the room temperature, because I was like, oh, my room's always at 68. But if you're under covers, which I always am, like the big woolly, the big comforters, and I'm like, it must be like 80 degrees under my duvet. So really only my face is feeling
cold.
It's cold.
I know, then you just get brain freeze.
Yeah, but but the pad helps regulate your body temperature as well.
That's really good. You're right. You're right. You can still get very warm under your duvet even if it's like 50 out.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, thank you so much for breaking all that down.
Of course.
Mohammed, I could talk to you forever.
I know, it was so great.
So great. Where can people find you and all the amazing things that you're doing with your book? You've got a new podcast coming out.
I do.
Isn't it so exciting?
A really good cry.
A really good cry. Is that what the final name?
A really good cry. So I'm Radhi Devlukia on Instagram, and then I also have my book, which is at joyfulbook.com. That's JOYFULL book.com. And my podcast, it's a really good cry.
Keep watching to learn how to gain the respect that you're looking for, set boundaries, and stop being the nice girl. How did you over time then develop that self-esteem and realize that you're actually worth it? Because you talk about the fact that, I mean, you're freaking crushing it. You're known everywhere. Jay-Z won't do any other interview except to doing it like directly with you. Everybody that wanted to speak on their career, their hip hop, they wanted to come to you. Like you were that person.
Well, I think, first of all, the pool at that time, and not to discredit myself, the pool was a lot smaller back then. And now everybody who has a few dollars can get a microphone and start a blog or a podcast. So there's plenty of outlets. There's plenty more spaces for people to talk to. Back then there weren't as many. And I think the reason a lot of people felt safe with me is because I built relationships with them. I think people just learned to trust me. I really tried to operate, from a place of integrity. And I think that really served me well. And also, I was lucky enough, I came of age at a time where hip hop was also coming of age in New York. So I had all of these amazing artists coming of age at the same time. So we're in the same city, we know each other, we're at the same clubs, we're hanging out, and so there's a trust. I love the culture. I really enjoy people, like getting to know people, and especially people who are so talented and like, where does that come from? Or people who have been through a lot of stuff. Like I told you, I'm interested to kind of just get to know people, and then of a music and a culture that I'm so committed to. And at the beginning, I was just a fan. I wasn't part of the culture. I think as I've grown, I've grown into my space inside of the culture and became part of it. But when I started, I was just a fan. I was a hip hop fan. I grew up, idolizing Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in a position where I'm interviewing the next Big Daddy Kane and the next. And even Rakim himself, So I just was happy to be there. I was a fan. I respected it and the artist so much. And, it just it's taken me, hip hop has taken us this far. It's amazing.
I love that girl, but like, you're so damn humble. And
thank you.
Yeah. As I was looking into you and researching you, I heard you say that it wasn't until you had your son, though, that you went in and you're like, I'm gonna ask for a pay rise.
Yeah.
And when you went in and asked and you finally were like, hang on a minute, I think I'm actually worth more than this. They end up like doubling your salary.
Yeah.
And
which goes to show how underpaid I was for so long.
So that was so powerful when I heard it, because I thought, because you had so much passion and loved what you did.
I felt, and also because I grew up there. So they'd given me this opportunity. So I felt almost indebted to like, thank you for this break and this opportunity, for believing me and giving me this platform. But then at a point, there is a shift where it's like, okay, I've paid my dues. I've interned, I've worked 40 hours, and, I did it. And now I've contributed, and now I've actually helped to build this place. And now I've actually, I'm of value to you.
But wasn't it a big part
but I had
because
to, in my
had
head,
your son?
Yeah, for sure. When you become a mother, your priorities change a bit.
In the sense that we won't fight for ourselves, but will easily fight for other people.
I did it too to myself.
You're like, freaking Jay-Z's coming to you, Tupac's coming to you, like the biggest people on the freaking planet in hip hop.
And I'm like,
saying,
I'll take my little salary. I'm just grateful. I'm just happy to be here.
And it wasn't until you had the damn son, girl, that you were like, maybe I should fight for my family.
Yeah. I just said this to one of my girlfriends the other day. I don't want to share her business too much, but somebody very close to me was having a lot of guilt about something that they felt like they could have done. And I asked her, she was like, I just feel I have this guilt. And she lost a family member, and she had guilt about what she thought she could have done to make it different. And I said to her, well, let me ask you a question. What would you say if your daughter came to you and said, I have this guilt because I feel like I could have done something and saved their life, or I could have done, what would you tell your daughter? If the same thing you're saying to me, if your daughter came to you and said that to you, what would you say to her? She goes, oh my God, I would tell her, of course it's not your fault. Of course, well, I said, well, why wouldn't you say that to yourself? Why wouldn't you give yourself the same love? Why wouldn't you love on yourself the same way that you would want to love on your daughter? It's like, we don't do that for ourselves, and we should. And so I tried to do that. I tried to remind myself of that in those moments. But I think as women, we're like nurturers and caretakers, and we want to take care of everybody else. But it really is important for us to take care of ourselves the same way, at least equally the same. At least, even if you don't put yourself above everybody else, at least at the minimum, put yourself on the same level. At least on the same level.
Because we don't do that, yeah.
No, because we put everybody, and then like we're down here. Okay, ideally you should put yourself first. You know, you put your seatbelt on first, ideally. But if you can't, at the minimum, woman, put yourself on the same level, at least. Don't put yourself below, because what are you saying to yourself, and what are you telling everybody else about how to treat you? You know, so I shifted that in my life. I learned how to do that, at least, and it helps. Like, it helps to, like, when you're beating yourself up about something, to think to yourself, what would I do if somebody else came to me with the same thing? How would I treat them? And then giving yourself that same care and grace.
How much of facing death helped with that for you to take care of yourself more? And if you don't mind explaining the story.
Yeah. So yeah, it was 3 years ago. I got into a car accident, broke my back, shattered my L1.
But like your car like went up in the air, like
in the air, 20 feet down. It was weird. I had this Tesla that, you know, if you hit the gas, it goes from like 0 to 32 in like 2 seconds. I had just gotten the car. It was my first electric car. And I was home. I was pulling into my driveway, and I went to slam on the brakes because I saw some shadow in my house. They were doing construction. So I looked away and I saw a husband's car. So I tried to hit the brakes, and he slammed on the gas, and I swerved, and the car went, and I have a garage that goes like this in my house, and goes 10, 15, I don't know, feet, 20, maybe 20 feet. Anyway, my car went in the air. I want to say 20 feet in the air, into the neighbor's yard, into the trees, and went in the air and came down. Oh. Yeah, my dog was I had my dog because I just dropped my son off at school, and my dog was in the back seat. And I just landed. I'm in the trees. And I didn't know this, but electric cars, they can't cut the doors out, so they have to cut the trees. Emergency people have to come and get the trees out. But I knew I couldn't move. My phone was there. I couldn't grab it. So I was just sitting in the car, and I just hit the horn. And the neighbors and my husband just came out the house. And it's crazy because I had just seen an interview that Kevin Hart did, because Kevin Hart also broke his back. I don't remember what he said, but there was something in it that I was holding on to. It's so funny how like conversation could change people's lives. In that moment, I'm like holding on to this thing that Kevin Hart had said about you could get back up, because he had broke his back. I knew it in the car. I knew I was broken. I knew I couldn't move. I was in so much pain, and I was got into the ambulance, and they touched my toe, and I could feel the toe. So I was like, okay, I know from everything with the movies and the TV I watched, this might be a good sign.
Yeah.
But you don't know if you're paralyzed. You don't know if you could stand again. You don't know. It was scary. And so, whatever, fast forward. But then after, you're in recovery and you're laying down for a while. And yeah, it pivots. It changes how you operate. It changes what you appreciate. It slows your timing down a little bit, which I needed. Like, as I told you, I was always over there chasing everything. It slowed me down. When you slow down, you're more present, right? So it was a blessing for me, for sure. So if I was still living, I would be miserable if I hadn't slowed down. I might be a miserable person right now. Yeah, for sure. Because at some point, you need, like you said, that harmony. And I don't think I had it. I think I was always running, chasing. And I think the accident helped just like slow me down enough where I could have a better harmony and a better balance for myself. Because now I do. Now I'm golfing. I'm like doing things that I would have never been. I don't have time to golf. Who the hell has time to do that? Now I'm like, I make time. Now, and I hate to say this to you, but I called because we were supposed to do this in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I was like, do you mind if we do it in the morning? I would never change the time on you, but I was like, you know what? It's the only time I could go golf. I did, and I said if it wasn't okay, I would have figured it out. But I chose to I choose me a little bit more often than I used to because of that experience and being forced to slow down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I love that. how do you hold on to the staying power? So I've heard you talk about, I remember the story that you share where you're in a fire and like, again, like that, it was, I can't remember whose house it was on fire, and you almost like, you were either going to go out the window or, you know,
down the stairs,
into the fire.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that really, really shook you. But the problem is that the staying power of something sometimes obviously doesn't last. And so we have these moments of hardship or struggle, and we're like, oh my God, this has taught me such a lesson.
Oh yeah, like when somebody dies, they go, life is short. And then for like 3 weeks, you're operating on life is short. Those things happen and they don't stick.
Yes.
But sometimes things happen and they stick.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky that that was one of those moments where it stuck. And I don't, maybe because it was so harsh. Mm-hmm. And I just said this recently to someone. I was like, I used to ask myself, like, because I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe that everything is made to happen to you because you need to have whatever happened to you. And in that moment, I was like, why did it have to be so harsh? God, like whatever you're trying to tell me, did it have to be so hard? This was so hard. But when I think about it, it did have to be that hard because nothing else was going to slow me down. Nothing else was going to teach me to like have a better balance in life. Nothing else was going to correct my, just how I operate on purpose. And like I have more purpose to what I do now. Mm-hmm. Nothing was going to do that to me unless it was harsh. And so it had to happen to me that way. And so, you know, I was down for a few months. It was sad. And then even after you heal physically, I had a period where I was, I don't know how to, like those moments where you talk about you don't know how to get back up. Mm. It's okay. Like my back is healing. I'm walking, but I don't know what's over there for me. I don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I was still kind of on the radio, but I was just starting to get back. I just felt a little disconnected from myself in my life. And, I don't know, it just slowly started coming back. It just slowly started. I started understanding that I needed to have more purpose in my work. I started to have an understanding that I don't want to compromise anything that brings me joy, makes me proud. I don't want to compromise anymore. You know how crazy that is? You know how much compromising we all do in our lives? Like, I mean, I still do, but way less.
How do you then navigate that compromise? Like when you, because I'm always about like in those moments, how do you just like not go back to old habits, right? Where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to compromise myself this one time. I'm just going to compromise. Maybe. Like, how do you?
Old habits creep. The little head comes up sometimes. Yeah. Even when you're changing your life, mm-hmm. Even when you're pivoting, it's not all or nothing. It's like the wave. It's like trauma or grief or anything like that. It's not like, oh, I'm healed from grief. I'm not healed, I'm healed, and then you're healed forever. No, somebody explained it to me. It's like a tide. So grief, trauma, change. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. The tide goes in, and slowly it moves, right? Slowly. But the water doesn't just go away. The water slowly. And so like healing, changing, pivoting, it's all that. So even me, where I feel way more rooted. And these conversations I'm having in my podcast and the things I want to do in my career moving forward, I feel way more rooted in purpose. But that doesn't mean that little monster that is competitive and aggressive and chasing that thing over there doesn't pop up sometimes. It totally pops up for me. And that's okay because I use it for motivation, but I'm way more aware of it than I ever was.
How do you tame her?
Just reminding yourself, okay, what's important here? Why am I doing this? What is the just conversations with yourself, therapy.
Going back to the things that you said when you were in bed, like when you wanted to get out. So it's like, what is important to me? Like, would you repeat those things to remind yourself?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm consciously like, okay, I'm going to repeat these things, but it does echo in your head. And when you make pivots in your life and changes how you operate that work for you, and you feel the difference, it makes you not want to go back. Because I feel better like this, actually. I like this better for me. And so even when, I'm still guilty. There's days where I'm working too hard. But before I'd be working too hard and don't do anything about it. And it just was my way of being. Now I'll be like, okay, I need a day. Okay, hold on. This doesn't feel good. I'm self-correcting as I go. And so I give myself enough grace to say, that's better. You're doing better. It's not perfect, but it's better. And then this works for you better. And I think that's our lives. It's always like shifting a little bit. And none of us, and this is why I have sometimes hard times with like, when we watch these like motivational speakers, or we're looking to these gurus or these people who have all the answers, because we're all searching for answers. We're searching for ways to live better lives. We're searching for ways to like function at higher levels. We want that. But anybody to me who projects, I got this all figured out and this is it. This is how you achieve the goal. I find that is bullshit. Because 99.9% of the time, those same people, you're not doing this. You're not succeeding every day. Nobody is succeeding every day. No one. Well, I'm not. I do them pretty well. I think I'm doing better than I was 5 years ago, better than 10 years ago. But, and that's okay.
Dude, that's the important shit though, right? That's the important thing. Because to your point, no one's perfect. So now if someone at home is thinking, oh, perfection exists, I'm not perfect, they are, well, I must be doing something wrong. Like that doesn't serve anyone. Versus you sitting here being so damn honest about all the ups and downs and the messes. Like someone from the outside can look at your career, easily go out and completely dismiss you.
Yeah.
Like absolutely go, well, she was lucky. Well, she was at the right time, the right place. Right? Like, there could be a million reasons that they can dismiss. But the fact that you're like, no, this was messy. This was hard. Even now I have to like call myself on my own stuff. I still have a habit of going. I think that's what's important. And that's why I'm always trying to dig deeper and go, in those moments, what do you do? How do people think? Because we all, especially myself, I follow my emotion and I don't mean to, right? It just kind of and let me tell you, my emotions lead me astray.
Yeah.
And so,
I don't think, no, yes.
And so now it's just addressing, yes, your emotions lead you astray. They don't have to be, like, I don't take my emotions as fact, but sometimes I do need to just embrace my emotions and then have okay, now's the moment to be on the floor, like cuddle yourself, hug yourself, listen to all the
whatever
sad
you
songs.
need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other moment is get the F up because you've got this.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about your story. That's what I love about you, is that you have the beauty of both. You have those two competing things that it seems like that you're always navigating. And that's my point, is that at home.
Aren't we all though?
Yes. And that's the thing, that when someone that yourself, though, that someone can look up to and go, oh my God, look at their career, look at the life.
It's so funny you say that, because sometimes people credit me, and you did this earlier in the interview, you said, because you're so humble. People credit me for being so humble. And sometimes I feel guilty accepting that, because it's not that I'm humble, it's that I'm just realistic. So if you giving me all these praise about something, I'm like, thank you, it's so nice, but like none of us are perfect. Like none of it. We're all just trying to do our best, and I do try to do my best, and I do try to operate with integrity, and I tried my best to do my best by people. Sometimes I slip, sometimes I fail, sometimes but I don't know that it's me being humble. I think it's me being realistic, because I look at it as, I take myself out of the equation, right? When somebody goes, oh my God, you did this, or I've been watching you for years, and what you're doing now, I take joy in that, because it's not from an egotistical place. It's not because I want it, because I believe all these things about myself. I take joy in that because something I did has affected this person in such a way that they want to offer that to me. And so my pride is in that. Does that make sense?
1,000%.
That makes sense. My pride is in like, wow, I did something good because this person feels that about me. It's not so much that I need that from me, or that I necessarily believe that about myself. I think we all are put here to share, to do our best, to and then if you actually touch people in that way, that's like a bonus.
And I think also that one more thing to add to that is, because from the outside, you just see the result, right? So it's like, oh my God, I love this song. I love what you've done, right? I can talk about the results of it. But I think when, for yourself, right, it's like, but you're in it. You're in the everyday. You're having to face yourself. You're having to face your ego. You're having to face your own insecurities. You're having to face people pushing back. And so to you, it may not just seem like the result. It's like, oh my God, everything that I've done to do that. It was such a struggle that almost like you feel maybe bad about taking like the
praise.
The praise
Yes.
because you're like, do you know what it took me to get there?
I've never been good with praise. And I don't think it's because I'm self-doubting or anything. I think it's just because it's like, look, we're all just trying our best. I'm so happy that it meant something to someone.
Yeah. But I also get torn because you have done something that other people haven't been able to do. And I don't want to dismiss that because in order for you to be able to do something, you've had to go through a whole load of shit. You know, like in the movie Shawshank Redemption, where it's like, I crawled through a mile of shit to get to like the freedom on the other end, right? It's like, you've crawled through the mile of shit, gal. So when I look at your dream, your goal, where you are, it's because you haven't stopped. It's because you've been relentless, you've been resilient, you've picked yourself up every time that you've fallen. It's not that you haven't fallen. And I keep going back to it. I think that one of the biggest detriments to us, especially as women, is a story we tell ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
And so when I think about what story women tell themselves, what people right now may be listening, thinking about, is that whatever story they're telling, they can choose a different story. And you are a beautiful example of being able to choose a different story because you've been able to pivot, because you've been able to get yourself back up, because you've been freaking resilient. And the marathon, you running a marathon was the perfect example of this exact thing. This exact thing we're talking about. So if you don't mind talking to me about the marathon, because up until this point, everything we've discussed, I think really encompasses your mindset around you being the person that's like, I haven't run a mile, but I'm going to do a bloody marathon.
Well, goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like chasing something. And I think at a point I was chasing maybe success, maybe like respect. I was chasing that. Then I got into a phase where I was chasing to be inspirational to people. I wanted to inspire people. I had been at Hot 97 for so many years. And when I left to go to Power, all of a sudden I was flooded with people going, oh my God, I grew up listening to you. The time you did this, the time you did that. I remember when you had your baby and you were talking on the air. I was flooded with all this uplifting energy from people who had made me feel like I inspired them in some way. And so then I was like floating from that, right? And so I felt so lifted up because it was a scary time for me. So you leave a job that you're at for all these years, you leave a place that you feel like molded you, shaped you, made you who you are. Now I'm exiting because I don't want to just be that. I want to be something else. I want to be just me. I want to move around. I want to explore. So you leave the nest and you're vulnerable when you leave a nest. Anybody who's worked at a place a long time, maybe since you're a kid, scary to make a pivot like that. So I was vulnerable. And when in that vulnerable state, people had lifted me up so much and made me feel so like, you inspired me. And so now I'm like almost addicted to that, right? You become addicted to that. So then I changed jobs, and now I'm sitting at my new job after all that, the new radio station at Power. And I'm like, I got to do something to inspire people again. Now I'm addicted to that feeling of like, what am I going to do now? And so I was like, what could I do to be inspiring? And what would inspire me? And my whole life, I thought the hardest thing ever, because I hated running. My mother used to watch the marathon when I was a kid. I thought that would be if I could run a marathon, I could do anything, because I hate running. If I could do that, I could do anything. So it's always like I'm inspiring myself, but if I'm being honest, in the hopes of inspiring other people, right? And so I was like, I'm gonna run the marathon. I couldn't run to the corner store without passing out. Like I hated running. I was not in good shape. And the marathon was about 6 months away. And so I signed up. And then I publicly said I was doing it, and people started donating money. So we had raised like over $100,000. So now I'm in a position where there's money involved for the Pitchin Foundation, for these kids. I had tried to train a little bit. I got injured on the training. I'm like limping. So the week before the marathon, there's this like long race. So I'm training for the 6 months. There's supposed to be a long run that you do right before the marathon. It's 18 miles. So I'm running, walking. I just have to finish it, right? So I'm trying to do the 18-mile. I hurt myself, my hip flexor. So now we're a week or two out from the marathon and I'm limping. limping. I'm like limping to work, and people are like, "You're gonna run a marathon? You can't even walk. What are you talking about?" So like I'm like limping, and then I just put, I'm big on the thing you tell yourself, like how I tell yourself when you're down, you just haven't figured it out yet. That's the thing I tell myself. The thing that I told myself for the marathon was, you had a baby. It hurt. But if you have a baby in your belly and has to come out, no matter how much it hurts, has to come out. There's no turning back. Can't push the baby back up. Baby has to come out no matter how much it hurts. So I said, I'm going to use that for the marathon. Has to happen. I have to finish. There's no way out. Can't turn around. The baby has to come out. Like, this is literally the thing I told myself. So I showed up that day limping. I showed up limping to the marathon. And it took me a ridiculous amount of time to finish it. But I just went there with the intention, like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to finish it. And it was really hard. And if I'm being honest, like, I beat my body up for no reason. Like, I was hurt for a year after the marathon. like my hip flexor was a mess. But I did it. And it was a testament to like mental, like what you can do, what your mind can do versus what your body could do. So it was, for me, that was, I don't know, it was a big lesson for me. But I also realized, what are you doing that for? What are you trying to, you have to ask yourself those questions, like, what was you trying to prove? What was that rooted in? Are you looking for attention? Like, I have to ask myself those questions to make sure that I'm keeping it 100. I'm being honest with myself. Like, are you doing this because you really needed to do it? Or were you chasing, like, what were you chasing by doing that? I have to ask myself those questions when those things come up. And if I'm being honest, it was a thing for me. It was a bucket list thing I always wanted to do. I wanted to be able, I felt like if I could do that, I could do anything. But also, I think I also was chasing that feeling of being able to inspire people, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you become addicted to it, it's a little, you gotta watch that. Anything that you're addicted to, you have to watch out for.
I love that story so much because as I was listening to it, I was like, this is what makes you. Like, the no excuses.
No excuses, yeah. Sure. There's always, it's not even that there's no excuses, because you can make excuses. There's always a way. There's always a way. You can figure it out. And if you haven't figured it out, and if you haven't, it's just because you haven't figured it out yet. There's always a way to figure out whatever the thing is you're trying to do or get done. Or I do believe that. I do.
But even in that situation, though, like, you could say, like, it's not good for your body. Like, you're going to wreck your hip for a year. You know what? It's not an excuse. It's a valid reason. And in that moment, it is a valid reason. No one, if you were like, God, I can't freaking walk, right? And people were seeing you limp.
But where's the inspiration in that?
Right. But and here's the thing, though. Even though you said, like, looking back now, what was the reason, and really dig, I think that's so beautiful, by the way, and a very powerful tool. I think that we should be asking ourselves on the daily, if not at least on the monthly. It's like, what are you doing this for? Like, to keep checking in with yourself. But there is the thing, like, and obviously I don't want to be like, oh, and you should have just injured yourself for a year. But there is something about that. There is the fact that every little thing that you think can do becomes then an echo. And so in that moment of you going, it's fine, you got a bad hip, don't do it. It then becomes an echo of how you show up again. And so again, I totally hear that you're not encouraging people to go out and injure their body for over a year, but I don't want to almost dismiss the power of that mindset. Oh, no, yeah,
I'm not trying to dismiss that either, but I think it's the both things at the same time.
Yeah.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with doing things because you want to inspire people. There's nothing wrong with that, but just being aware of why you're doing things is what's important.
Yes.
Don't be like, yeah, I'm just doing this because I want to. No, let's like unpack this a little bit so you can make sure you're making the right decisions and everything. And sometimes you may choose to beat yourself up because you want to inspire somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just being aware of it.
Yes.
What your reasoning is for things of that. And for that moment, if I'm being honest, I think it was both. I think it was me having this bucket list, but me being so high off of this moment that I had just had where I felt I had done good work and I had inspired people. Oh, what do I got to do next? How do I keep doing that? Okay, well, just calm down. Just just relax. Just enjoy that you just had that moment and just coast for a little while. And I hadn't gotten there yet in my life. This today in 2023 might have said, that was great. It's okay. Like, you don't have to, just because you felt in that moment you were inspiring to somebody, you don't have to do it again this month. You can, but you don't have to. Whereas there, I was, I gotta do something else. I gotta figure out a way to do the next thing, So I was still in that phase of my life where I felt the need to go over there. What's over there? What could I do over there?
And the awareness piece, right? You're so aware now. So
being aware of why you're doing it. Yeah. But nothing wrong with it. Yeah. I don't regret it. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about how you talk to yourself. Really has a lot to do with the outcome of whatever the thing is you're trying to do. Because, for 26.2 miles, I'm hurting half a mile in. I'm saying to myself, oh God, why did you do this? And when you get this, but I don't let that conversation go on too long.
Okay, so take me through it in real time. So your voice is coming in, you're at like the first mile.
Oh God.
Oh God, yep.
Well, first of all, no, you show up with, there is no turning back, right? That's how I showed up. And it took me a while. I had to figure out, how am I going to get through this? Because 2 or 3 days before, I'm panicking to my friends, like, I can't, it's not possible. I was literally having a panic. I can't, physically, it's not possible. I can't do it. I can't even walk. How do I get out of this thing? I was panicking.
Okay.
And then I found, because I hadn't found it yet. And then the thing I needed to tell myself, which I found, was, okay, you had a baby. It hurt. There's no turning back. This is what you're going to use. This is how you're going to show up. Okay, got it. So you show up. This is the thing. This is the little conversation in my head happening. And you show up, because the conversation, like you said, in your head is so important. What we tell ourselves. So I told myself at the beginning, but then doubt creeps in, half a mile, when you're already in pain, and you're like, why did I do this? But then you get to like mile 7, and you go, you did 7 miles. You're going to finish. It's okay. It's gonna hurt. You are going to finish it. And this is what I'm telling myself on the road. I'm having these conversations. You're going to finish it. And I was talking to myself so much in my head that I had no headphones. I had no music. I had made a whole playlist in my mind. I was going to listen to music the whole way.
Being into music.
No, but I had to talk to myself so clearly for so long that I didn't even put it on. This is how the conversation in my head is going. And then at 7, I'm like, oh no, you're capable, because you've done 7 already, and you shouldn't be able to do that. So the fact that you did that means, yeah, you're going to finish it. It's going to be fine. I'm talking to myself like a crazy person. Inside my head is a whole conversation. But literally, the conversation in my head is what gets you to the finish line. Because then all of a sudden you're there. And so that was a great lesson for me in terms of like what I'm capable of, how important it is, the conversations that we have in our head, how it shifts, how it changes and shifts what the outcome of what we're trying to do is. And then for me also, it's like the why. Why are you doing that? It started to become important to me after that.
Yeah. And then going back to where we even started this interview, it's the resilience piece. It's the fact that, well, 1,000 other people, 100,000 other people, 100 million other people may stop and go, oh shit, my hip is bad. This is silly. I shouldn't be doing this to myself, right? And now I don't do it. And then the next time I find either adversity or, something that I have to actually overcome, I've already trained myself that it's okay not to go for it. And so when I think about how you just keep showing up, it's these little moments. It's the moment of the marathon where you could have quit easily and everyone would have given you a free pass, and that's the point, right?
I would have felt terrible though.
Yeah.
I would have not loved that feeling. I do have that part of me. It's very competitive. I like to win. I like to, I like a challenge, all those things. So that I don't know that if I would have given myself an out, I don't know that I would have felt good about that.
Do you think it comes down to really identifying your core values? Because I've heard you talk about the 3 core values that to you are the most important, that when you were then going to look for a partner, you also made sure that they had these. Oh my God,
the best date. It was my dating advice, right?
Yeah.
I met this guy. His name is Paul Carrick-Brunson. He's from the UK. I met him when he was still here in the US, and he was a matchmaker. And love life. I met him at a meeting. I was meeting with somebody. He was the next meeting, and they were like, he's a matchmaker. And we just started chatting. I'm interested in people. So I started asking him a bunch of questions, and he was saying that, and at that time I was single, and he was like, well, what do you want? I was like, I don't know. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I was in that stage of my life. Oh, I'm too busy. He was like, okay. And I was like, but I would like to be in a relationship. And he was like, well, how much effort or work have you put into that? I was like, well, it should just happen. It should be natural. He's like, yeah, no, the same way you want to win at everything else in your life. If you want that, you have to actually put some thought and some, it was the first time, I don't know, anybody had said that to me. And he said, and where you should start is figuring out what your 3 core values are, and then look for that in someone else. And that's how you find a partner. He said, because sometimes you get distracted by somebody's funny or somebody's ambitious or somebody's good looking or they got a swag or they got a thing. And so you could be attracted to something that has nothing to do with what really matters to you, like what your core is. So if you're aware of what yours are, you might find it in a different package. It might be in a guy that you would never in a million years think. But if you see one of those 3 core values, because now you're aware of what yours are, you're more likely to even be open or receptive to that. And not just in relationship, man, woman, but just the world, like friends, people you meet by chance. Like, oh, I like her because she mimics something that matters to me. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know what your shit is, then how are you even going to attract the things in your life, relationship, friendships, anything like that? So for me, that was like, oh, that's, you learn things in life where some things, like you say, they go through you, they matter for a week. Some things stay with you. So that was one thing that stayed with me.
And when you listed those core values, because it was loyalty, honesty, and God, I believe. And when
it was family.
Yeah.
It was family.
For the loyalty, yeah.
Yeah, my relationship with God, and honesty.
Yeah.
Honesty is really important to me.
And hearing those, I was like, it is beautiful and very interesting to see how that does echo in just other things, ways of your life as well. Mm-hmm. Right? Going back to, it's not just your romantic relationship, it's the type of business that you do, the type of people that you're involved in. Mm-hmm. When that becomes, these are the 3 things that I am going to always protect and look for other people.
It's important to, when you're doing self checking in with yourself, checking in with yourself, make sure why you're doing things. If you just remember what's important to you, or when you're confused about making a decision, you can go back to that. Where does that fit in? What I believe I really care about, or what I believe is most important. It helps you in decision making, because we're all presented. There's so much opportunity in the world right now, especially if you have any success in one thing. I'm sure people call you like, hey, you want to be a model, or you want to be a endorser for this, or do you want to do this convention? There's opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have to be like, what if those are in line with what I say I want my life to be and mean? And so I'm grateful for that, because it does help me navigate. Sometimes I'm like, why would I do that? It seems like a great opportunity, but is it in line with my soul and what I want to do, how I want to spend my time and what I want my life to mean? And if the answer is no, then I don't do it. Even if people would deem that to be a great opportunity, if it doesn't serve me in a real way like that, I'm not interested in doing things like that anymore.
Yeah, and I found it really beautiful as a way of, okay, this is who you show up to be. And I thought of, like, with anyone listening, the value of actually identifying what your 3 core values are, so that it does help you pivot or remain in the situation, whether it's a relationship, relationship or business or friendship. And there was one other thing that I found really fascinating, that it was so beautifully articulated that I really wanted to repeat them. And it was a great guide for other people. So when you talk about boundaries, I know people turn to you a lot. You said that you've actually taught your team about boundaries, because people just step over you if you don't create those lines. And I've heard you say that the 2 boundaries that are very important to you. One, not to be around people who don't actually want what's best for you. Yeah. And then 2, not being around someone who resents your drive. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, those are 2 really, like, in encompassing who you surround yourself with and then how they impact you. Those I found really freaking beautiful boundaries.
Yeah. And I think I shared that because I think we, especially when I was younger, I didn't understand that all the way. Sometimes you could fall in love, or you could have friendships, or you could have people in your life that you maybe admire, maybe mentors, maybe whatever. And so you want to make people proud of you. You want to make people, or a relationship, you want to make your partner feel good. But then sometimes if that means dimming your light in any way, or if you start feeling if something inside you wants to do that, and there are people in your life that act weird about it, you have to pay attention to that, because there's always going to be people that don't have the drive you have, or are not going in the same direction you're going. And when you're young, I would say 20s, 30, maybe young 30s, sometimes it could just shift your direction a little bit, and and it could push you on the wrong path if you let other people's either insecurities or whatever their thing is, if you let that take you off of what is pulling in you and your heart and your goal and whatever your direction is, that could be, it could be sad. You could be missed opportunity. It could be a big mistake in your life. And so I realized early, like, it's important for me to have people around me that lift me up, that you'll succeed better. And it makes the journey more fun. You don't want resistance at every turn from people in your lives. Like, you don't want a relationship or friendships of people who resent you trying to get over there or trying to, whatever you're trying to do. Like, you need people to lift you up and support you, and life will be so much better. I really am blessed in that way. I have great friends, and I have a partner who he loves when I win. He's like my biggest supporter and fan, so that's great. My mom is super supportive, and I don't really have any of those people in my life anymore that kind of would resent anything I do. Right?
I think that's so powerful because, I think it was Tony Robbins that first came up with the notion that you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
I love that.
And if we take that as truth, thinking through who do you surround yourself with and how do you somehow maybe navigate, like, are these the right people? Because to your point that you actually said earlier, it's like you can be, bedazzled by their personality or their charisma, but actually it's not good for you or for your future or for, what you want. So when I heard that those were the 2 boundaries, I was like, they're so on point, because especially us women, we inevitably, being people pleasers, you said that earlier as well, will accidentally dim our light to try and please somebody else and not realize, and then maybe blink, and we've been dimming our light for 5, 6, 7 years and we haven't been living the life we want. So having these kind of like clear boundaries of who you let own your circle, really freaking powerful.
It can make a huge difference in your whole life experience, and you just change your life, literally. It's like, we have this one experience in this earth, like in this world. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's another life, whatever. But in this lifetime, this is it. This is what we got. And whatever you need to do, or whatever is going to make you happy, or whatever is going to fill your soul, you have to be able to do that. And you want to try to make that as easy as possible. And so take out anything that is, it doesn't mean you don't care about people. It doesn't mean you don't offer a hand when you have a hand to offer. It doesn't mean you don't take time to maybe help somebody with a problem if you have the time and you're willing to, but you can't let other people just hold you down to that you can't fly for yourself. Like, you have to be able to fly. And sometimes that means shaking off things that weigh you down.
Click here right now to break your nice girl habits, master your confidence, and enter your bad bitch era.
The future of if I continue to go down this road, if I gain twice the weight, if I get arrested twice the times, right? If I have twice the bad friends, like what my life looks like, it was unacceptable to me. I don't want to f around anymore.